My roommate dragged me out shopping after her breakup. A homeless man accidentally bumped into her, and she started yelling in his face. I told her to let it go, but she refused and kept shouting. To my shock, the homeless man pulled a knife from his pocket and lunged at her. My roommate pulled me in front of her as a shield. I was killed on the spot, while she was rescued without a scratch. To shirk responsibility, she claimed I was the one who provoked the homeless man, said I deserved it, and that I almost got her hurt. When I opened my eyes again, my roommate was asking me to go shopping. Wei, come shopping with me, please, I'll buy you bubble tea. Su Luofei's coquettish voice reached my ears. I ran my hands over my intact body, gently touching the places that had been slashed. It really didn't hurt at all anymore. Su Luofei, I'm back. I clawed my way back from hell. I smiled at her and said, sure. Where would you like to go? I'm going. I have to go. I need to see her get hacked to death by that vagrant with my own eyes. After some thought, Su Luofei decided to go to Chuanxi Road to check out some handsome guys. Who knows, if she met someone who made her heart flutter, she could snap right out of her heartbreak. Sure enough, just like in her past life, she ended up taking the exact same bus. The only difference was her new phone case, which had a lanyard so she could wear it around her neck. She also had pepper spray and a sharp fruit knife tucked in her bag. The pedestrian street was packed with people. Su Luofei kept pointing out handsome guys to me, then shook her head with a sigh. What a shame, this one's a 02. I checked the time. In 1 minute, I was going to run into the homeless man. I can't wait. 2. I tapped on my phone and started recording a video. Soon enough, I spotted the homeless man. Su Luofei was too busy checking out the handsome guys to watch where she was going. When she bumped into the homeless man, honestly, they were both at fault. Su Luofei gasped as she was jolted by the impact. In my past life, I had caught her in time and whispered words of comfort. This time, I stood a few steps away, watching her get knocked to the ground, her hands scraped and bleeding. Su Luofei's face was contorted with rage. She scrambled to her feet and pointed at the homeless man, shouting, "You blind idiot." The homeless man glanced at her and turned to leave. There was no way Su Luofei was going to let it slide. She grabbed the handbag from her shoulder and hurled it at the homeless man. "You knock into me and think you can just walk away, you ill-mannered brat. Can't you even apologize?" The vagrant turned around, his eyes fixed on Su Luofei. "Say that again." Su Luofei ran to my side, tilting her head back and shouting, "So what if I did? You're the one who bumped into me. Do you believe I can make you disappear from this world?" If Su Luofei's hand hadn't been gripping mine so tightly, and the corner of her mouth hadn't been trembling slightly, I might have actually believed her. 3. I grabbed Su Luofei's arm from behind. "Fei, just let it go. He's having a hard time too. There's no need to be so aggressive." Su Luofei shook off my hand, looking at me with utter disbelief. "Su Weiwei, what do you mean by that? You're my friend. How can you not take my side?" In my past life, I didn't try to persuade her like this. I was much more tactful, but she didn't listen then either. I sighed. All right, whatever you do is right." Su Luofei snorted coldly, then turned and started cursing at the homeless man again. The crowd of onlookers was growing larger, so I slowly edged my way to the side. Su Luofei was cursing even more viciously than in a past life. It felt like she was mistaking the homeless man for the ex-boyfriend who'd dumped her. I saw the homeless man moving closer and closer to her. The show is about to begin. Su Luofei was so absorbed in her tirade that she failed to notice the danger creeping closer. When the vagrant pulled a knife from his pocket, she panicked. She tried to grab someone nearby, but the crowd scattered too quickly. In the crowd, Su Luofei spotted me and cried out, "Weiwei, help me, how could it be? Isn't this the very moment I've been waiting for?" The vagrant lunged at Su Luofei, hacking at her body again and again with his knife. "You know what? Both my parents are dead. I hate it most when people curse me, saying I was born but never raised." For Su Luofei let out a pained wail. "Help, somebody help me, I'll never do it again. Please let me go, it's all my roommate's fault. If she had stopped me, I never would have cursed at you. Go get her instead." Just as I thought, a cruel smile crept across my lips. Su Luofei deserves to die. The homeless man's eyes were bloodshot with rage. There was no way he was going to listen to her. The bystanders were too scared to intervene, and could only help by calling the police. Su Luofei looked at me with pitiful eyes. "Weiwei, it hurts so much. Save me, please." I covered my mouth and shook my head. Ugh, if I didn't, I'd give away the smirk on my face. The pain means it's working. Feels so good. In my past life, I begged her through tears, but she didn't dare utter a single word in reply, just kept shrinking back into the crowd. I turned to look to the front right, and sure enough, there he was, the man who had saved Su Luofei in that past life. In the end, they got together. Su Luofei thought he was her salvation, but the man was a con artist. He got her into investments, took out online loans everywhere in her name, pushed her to make quick money, and finally vanished with all the cash. They're actually a great match. They simply have to be together. Once again, it was Qin An Yuan who saved her. The ambulance arrived quickly. Su Luofei was still clinging to life. It's a bit of a shame, but also for the best. She shouldn't get off that easy. 5. I crouched nearby, watching quietly. Su Luofei, unconscious, was loaded into the ambulance. Qin An Yuan went with her, while the homeless man was apprehended by the police. I didn't go, and I won't go now. Just seeing her get slashed today made the whole trip worthwhile. Su Luofei's family is not well off. If you front the medical bills, you likely won't see that money again. Qin An Yuan was a man of the streets. He had plenty of ways to make Su Luofei hand over the money without a fuss. I went back to school and, in tears, told my counselor about what happened with Su Luofei. She comforted me softly, then notified Su Luofei's parents and insisted on going to the hospital herself to keep watch. Ms. Li was a good person. In my past life, she didn't believe Su Luofei's lies and worked hard to track down the people who were there at the time. She wanted to get justice for me, but Su Luofei is shameless. Even with video evidence, she stubbornly insisted it was my fault. I was worried Ms. Li would get the short end of the stick, so I went to the hospital with her. Su Luofei is still in the operating room. I heard she was stabbed 34 times, is barely breathing, and it's unclear if she'll pull through. Qin An Yuan sat nearby scrolling through his phone, a smile on his face, completely indifferent to whether Su Luofei lived or died. I didn't even need to look to know he was hyping up his hero saves the damsel story online, setting the stage for his future scams. No one would ever associate the word hero with a con artist. 6. I opened my phone, and sure enough, it was trending. Since the video only showed Su Luofei being attacked, netizens began vilifying the homeless man, sympathizing with Su Luofei, and even started fundraising for her. That's not acceptable. How can you just blame the homeless person for everything? Donating is even worse. It's not like internet users' money grows on trees. I immediately uploaded the video I recorded today and thoughtfully spent $1,000 on boosting it. Soon, netizens saw the full video and split into 3 distinct camps. Some condemned Su Luofei, saying she got what she deserved. Others felt the homeless man went too far, while a third group remained neutral. Because of this video, the hype around the hero saving the beauty incident quickly died down, while Qin An Yuan, standing nearby, kept cursing under his breath. After waiting for another 2+ hours, Su Luofei's parents finally arrived. Ms. Li pulled me up to greet them, but before she could say a word, Su Luofei's mother slapped her across the face. What kind of teacher are you? If you can't even keep your students safe, you shouldn't be teaching. If anything happens to my Fei, I'll make you pay with your life. Ms. Li was stunned by the blow. I quickly shielded her behind me and slapped the attacker right back. What the hell is wrong with you? Do you even know that assault is illegal? 7. In my past life, Su Luofei's parents unconditionally supported their daughter, spreading malicious rumors about me everywhere. They even brought people to harass my parents, which ultimately cost them their jobs and forced them to borrow money to help me fight the legal battle. Before every court hearing, my parents would face retaliation from Su Luofei and her parents, but they didn't end up any better off either. They gave their entire life savings to Qin An Yuan, dreaming every day of climbing the social ladder, only to end up without even enough money for medical treatment, hovering in the air. I saw their true faces with perfect clarity. I won't let a single one of the 3 Su family members get away. So, before she could even react, I slapped her again. Su Luofei's father glared at me with pure malice, rolling up his sleeves as if to strike. Just as I was about to pull out my pepper spray, Teacher Li stepped in front of me. Mr. and Mrs. Su, please calm down. Let's get the full story before assigning blame. If you continue to cause a scene unreasonably, I will report this to the school immediately and involve the police. Su Luofei's father instantly withdrew his hand, forcing a fake smile. Please forgive us, Teacher Lee, my wife is just overly protective of our son, I'm sure you understand, right? He then pointed at me, your student already hit back on your behalf, so we're even now. Okay, 8. I shook my head in disagreement. You were the ones who started it. We were just defending ourselves, so, you need to apologize, otherwise. We're calling the police right now, Ms. Lee glanced at me and gave a firm, serious nod. Su Luofei's mother wasn't having it. She pointed at me and yelled furiously, on what grounds? You slapped me twice, I'm going to sue you. I looked at them with utter contempt. Su Luofei is still in critical care. You've been here all this time and haven't once asked about her condition. Did you just come here to stage a scene and extort us? Su Luofei's parents were taken aback for a moment, and then, out of guilt, they started shouting even louder. What nonsense are you talking? I entrusted my daughter to the school, so the school should be responsible for the students, and for us. I rolled my eyes hard. It's the weekend, for goodness sake. Your daughter is 21 years old. Do you even know why she got attacked? The moment you show up, you just want to pin the blame on the teachers and the school. You're just completely money-grubbing. Su Luofei's parents flushed with embarrassment. I pointed at Qin An Yuan, who was sitting nearby scrolling through his phone. Look, he's the one who saved Su Luofei. Shouldn't you go thank him? Su Luofei's parents were taken aback for a moment, then swallowed their pride and asked Teacher Lee what had happened. I simply pulled up the video and showed it to them. At first, Su Luofei's parents seemed a bit embarrassed, but then they started cursing at the homeless man. Finally, they fixed me with a piercing stare. 9. Are you Su Weiwei? Su Luofei's mother said coldly, why didn't you help Feifei curse him out? Why didn't you save her? I looked at them with a smile. Because I'm a model citizen, I stand for what's right, not just for my friends. It was Su Luofei's fault to begin with, so why should I help her? Su Luofei's mother was trembling with rage. I just grinned from ear to ear, not scared in the slightest. Last time I was thrown under the bus, it was mainly because I was unprepared. Now I'm a total lunatic. Mess with me and you're dead. Su Luofei's mother lunged at me, trying to hit me. I was waiting for her. With a smile, I pulled out my pepper spray and blasted it right into her eyes. Instantly, a shriek tore from her lips. Ah, honey, kill her, beat her to death for me. I kicked her hard twice. Come on then, let's see who dies first. I've wanted to beat them up for a long time. I've held back long enough. I turned my head and saw Mr. Lee stepping in front of me. Blocking Luo Fei Su's father, I quietly slipped the fruit knife I had just drawn in my right hand back into hiding. I let out a deep sigh, gave it a couple more kicks, and finally got to my feet. Ms. Lee shook her head at me. I shrugged and stood beside her. I had to save face for Ms. Lee. I knew she meant well. Su Luofei's mother lay wailing on the ground, shouting over and over that she was going to call the police. I smiled at her and said, sure, you started it, so what do I have to be afraid of? 10. Just then, Qin An Yuan arrived. He gave a very gentlemanly nod of greeting to Su Luofei's parents. Hello, I have some matters to attend to and must leave now. I covered 20,000 yuan in medical fees earlier. Please settle the bill. There's no way Su Luofei's parents would ever fork over the money. They turned to glare at me. This is all your fault. Feifei got stabbed because of you. You're paying the medical bills. Or I'll have the school expel you. I laughed. Who the hell do they think they are? They think they can just get me expelled, Teacher Lee said calmly. The school doesn't expel students without cause. Besides, Weiwei did nothing wrong. The ones responsible are the homeless man and Su Luofei herself. The homeless man has no money to speak of. At worst, he'll just spend a few more years behind bars. Su Luofei will just have to bear the brunt of her injuries herself. Qin An Yuan stood by with a gentle smile, seeming quite approachable. Su Luofei's mother said through tears, we have no money, you're a good person. Could you possibly cover it for us? Don't worry, once Feifei recovers and graduates, she'll pay you back the very first chance she gets. What a load of nonsense. If we weren't on opposite sides, I'd give her a big thumbs up. If you have to pay the medical bills yourself for saving someone, who's going to dare help anyone in the future? Qin An Yuan sighed. If you won't pay, I'll have no choice but to call the police. It's only 20,000. Any loan app could sort that out in a minute. He stared at the two of them with a cold, penetrating gaze. You're not thinking of backing out of our deal, are you? Remember, I can save her life. And I can just as easily take it back. 11. Su Luofei's parents were thoroughly cowed. They obediently transferred 20,000 yuan to Qin An Yuan. Having just seen the video, they knew Qin An Yuan was not someone to be trifled with. Playing the victim wouldn't work, so they had no choice but to pay up without a fuss. Ha, bullies who only pick on the weak. I chimed in with a sarcastic remark from the side. Thought you were broke, trying to cheat your own savior. How low can you get? What? Only 20 grand, not even a little extra as a thank you. So, Su Luofei's life turns out to be worthless. Su Luofei's parents' faces darkened, but they still didn't fork over a single extra cent, offering only a few words of thanks. How stingy. After Qin An Yuan left, Su Luofei's mother glared at me and Teacher Li with a venomous look in her eyes. No matter what, the school must pay compensation, and you, for failing in your duty as a friend, you must pay too. I wasn't the least bit angry and kept on smiling. Sure, go ahead and sue me, I'll pay whatever the court decides. Don't you worry, I'll go live and show the whole world exactly what kind of people you are. Tisk, TSK, with character like that, I doubt any company would dare hire you. With every word I said, the expressions on Su Luofei's parents' faces grew darker. Su Luofei's mother, with her fiery temper, tried to lunge at me again. I grabbed the pepper spray and let her have it. She took off like a shot. 12. It was over an hour before Su Luofei's surgery was finished. She's alive, but her injuries are severe. One wound came within 3 centimeters of her heart. Su Luofei came so close to clearing her name. A bit of a shame, but it's all right. A long while later, Su Luofei finally stirred awake. Her gaze swept the room before finally settling on Teacher Li. Mr. Li, this is all my fault. I've caused trouble for the school. My family's financial situation isn't great. Could you possibly help organize a fundraiser for me? Even on the operating table, her mind wouldn't rest. She even managed to think about fundraising. Su Luofei's parents' attitude changed instantly. They looked at Mr. Li with hopeful faces. Well, no discord, no concord. We're sure Mr. Li won't hold our earlier behavior against us. We'll leave Feifei's matter in your hands. We trust the school will handle the fundraising arrangements properly. I couldn't help but snort with laughter. Not sparing her any dignity at all. Sorry, but I recorded a video while you were hitting Teacher Li. I'll definitely post it on the campus forums so everyone can see what kind of person the parent we're supposed to be donating to really is. Su Luofei stared at me in utter disbelief. Wei, how could you do this? You didn't help me back then, and now you're trying to stop others from helping me, because she doesn't deserve it. After hitting Ms. Li, you still have the nerve to ask her to organize a fundraiser for you. The sheer audacity. I looked coldly at Su Luofei. Your mother slapped Ms. Li. Why on earth should she help you? Blame your mother for flying off the handle and hitting someone without even knowing the facts. 13. Ms. Li is a very kind person, but she has her limits too. I'll report your situation to the school. Focus on recovering. She didn't mention the fundraiser at all. Su Luofei's parents were still trying to resist. But the police arrived. As a witness, I was also kept behind to give a statement. Su Luofei kept shooting me meaningful glances. I knew she wanted me to take her side, but why on earth should I? I was a young pioneer and a model student. How could I possibly speak carelessly? I answered whatever the police asked, obediently and without hesitation. With the video online, the truth is plain to see. There's no need to lie. Su Luofei just woke up and has no idea about the video. She probably thinks she can play the victim for sympathy. I hope she'll just come clean. Knowing her, there's no way she's going to behave. After giving my statement, I headed straight back to campus. Today's assault has become a hot topic. Netizens have already dug up the victim's information, and the moment I stepped onto campus, everyone was talking about it. Some felt sympathy for Su Luofei, but more of her fellow students thought she was low class and had embarrassed the school. They think it should have been settled with a simple conversation, but she ended up getting stabbed so many times. She has no one to blame but her own pettiness. She had it coming. Most netizens are still clear-headed these days. It's mainly because my video evidence was just too damning. No matter how much Su Luofei tries to weasel out of it, she won't be able to make a splash. 14. Back at the dorm, my 2 roommates were gossiping. Su Luofei is a bit obsessive. Everyone just puts on a polite front with her and never gets too close. Su Luofei got her heart broken yesterday and cried all night. She drove us all up the wall. Today she wants to go shopping to check out guys. If I don't go with her, she'll be crying again tonight, and then none of us will get any sleep. Her crying is really unsettling. It's like a weird mix of sobbing and laughing. My two roommates looked at me with pity. They knew exactly what kind of person Su Luofe was. I shrugged. Perfectly calm, don't worry, I didn't get the short end of the stick. In my past life, they had my back too. They provided my parents with a lot of useful evidence. It's a shame the legal process was so convoluted and the lawsuit was such an uphill battle. Li Xiaoxi gave me a thumbs up. You're something else. We were worried sick. So, what happened to her? I knew she was talking about that video. If I hadn't been given a second chance at life, I wouldn't have been there to record it at just the right moment. Don't worry, I'm not dead. I just don't know when I'll be able to get back to school. They both sighed at the same time, then looked at each other and smiled. Li Xiaoxi raised her hand. How about we go get a nice meal to celebrate? Chen Lin said with excitement. At least our dorm will be quiet for a long time. Isn't that worth celebrating? Consider it a way to help you calm your nerves. Come on, let's go. I nodded. It really was worth celebrating. After all, today, I was reborn, 15, right in the middle of us enjoying our meal. Someone filmed a video and posted it online. The video's caption, how tragic. While Su Luofe is still fighting for her life in the hospital. Her roommates are out celebrating at a hot pot restaurant. On one side, there's Su Luofe, covered in injuries. On the other, there's us, laughing and chatting over milk tea and hot pot. Netizens who don't know the full story have already started attacking us online. Those who know the whole story have expressed nothing but sympathy for us in their comments. After all, having a roommate who's constantly picking fights is truly miserable. Other netizens shot back. What's the big deal about celebrating? It's not like they were the ones who did the stabbing, you have to admit. Most netizens these days are pretty sharp and not easily fooled. Li Xiaoxi and Chen Lin were absolutely furious. I offered them a few words of comfort, then calmly pulled out my phone to edit the video. The parts that needed blurring had to be blurred, otherwise it could easily get taken down. About 10 minutes later, two videos surfaced online. One showing Su Luofei's parents making unreasonable demands, and the other of Su Luofei herself asking for donations. I used the same account I posted with last time, which already had over 100,000 followers, so it carried some weight. I then spent another $1,000 on boosting the post and funneled some traffic over from that video that was trashing us. It blew up in no time. Li Xiaoxi and Chen Lin reposted it, their hands trembling as they typed, "Vivi, you're amazing. You're our idol." I'm not amazing. If it weren't for getting a second chance, I wouldn't even have had the opportunity to have a meal with them. 16. After watching the video, netizens figured out who I was. They even gave me a nickname, Sister Steel. I think it sounds pretty cool. It must be a compliment. The last few netizens who still felt a shred of sympathy for Su Luofei cursed at her a couple of times and then left too. This time, even her parents became infamous. Netizens have already started digging into their workplaces. It's unclear if they can keep their jobs, but Su Luofei's donations are definitely gone for good. Nobody's a fool. Why on earth should we donate to someone with such poor character? We had just gotten back to the dorm when Su Luofei called, "Vivi, please delete the video." "Okay, stop messing with me, will you? I'm already in bed. What more do you want from me?" "No way. This is just the beginning." A cruel smile crept onto the corner of my lips. "No can do. If I delete it, the netizens won't know the truth, and they'll just start attacking me again. I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm not about to take the blame." Su Luofei was stunned for a long moment. She probably never expected me to be so blunt. My two roommates beside me had stars in their eyes, giving me enthusiastic thumbs up, given a second chance at life. I refused to swallow my pride. It's time to stand and fight, Vivi. I didn't post that video. You're so kind. Can't you help me out just this once? I was just trying to play the victim. I need the money. Whether she needs money or not is none of my business. If I let her play the victim, then I'm the one who gets the short end of the stick, I said with a smile. I don't know if you were the one who posted that hot pot video, but it's really damaging to me. Fei, you're so sweet. You wouldn't want me to suffer, right? You can put on your little act. Just don't make me the one who pays for it. If you dare to use me for your little games, don't blame me for playing dirty. 17. Su Luofei sobbed quietly over the phone. "Vivi, I didn't. I'm still at the hospital. I know I was wrong. Just delete the video, please." I disagreed and refused outright. No hesitation. Su Luofei's tone shifted. She said mournfully, if you had stopped me today, none of this might have happened. I got hurt, shouldn't you feel responsible? How could I have stopped a lunatic? Even if I could stop her, I'm not an idiot. Why would I try to stop someone hell-bent on self-destruction? Su Luofei, you even had a vagrant attack me today. Stop pretending we're close sisters. You brought this on yourself. Don't expect me to feel guilty. Frankly, I'm annoyed that vagrant didn't finish her off. Su Luofei was gasping with rage. Su Weiwei, you'll regret this. I'll make sure you live to regret it, I replied with a grin. Sure, I'll be waiting. After hanging up, my two roommates looked at me with admiration in their eyes. Vivi, you're amazing, you almost made Su Luofei die of anger. She's covered in wounds right now. Getting this worked up might make them bleed. Just thinking about it feels pretty satisfying. Not long after, I came across Su Luofei online. She lay in the hospital bed, swathed in bandages, her face deathly pale. She looked as fragile as a willow in the wind. A truly pitiful sight. I'm sorry. I just went through a breakup yesterday and was in a bad place. I'm usually a decent person. I promise, I've already been punished for this, so please give me a chance to make things right. She figured she might as well redirect the blame. He was an ex-boyfriend now, so what was the harm in using him one last time? I've got to support this. Let's just repost it directly to the campus network. Guaranteed her ex will see it right away. 18. By the time I got back to check, there were already over 1,000 comments from netizens. So you take your bad mood out on a homeless person. That's not a bad mood. That's just being a terrible person. Good thing your boyfriend broke up with you. If he didn't dump someone like you, what was he waiting for? LOL. What era is this? Being the underdog doesn't automatically make you right. Suddenly, I feel a bit sorry for the homeless. Su Luofei not only failed to clear her name, but was also torn to shreds in the comments. 90% of them were bashing her. Her ex-boyfriend didn't even have to lift a finger. She had already lost. You've really got to hand it to today's netizens. My two roommates and I were munching on sunflower seeds and soaking up the drama. Su Luofei's ex-boyfriend has come forward, and he brought a whole pile of chat logs with him. The netizens were eagle-eyed, scrutinizing every single word, terrified of missing a single detail. Su Luofei accepted over 100,000 in transfers from her ex-boyfriend, plus all sorts of gifts. All in all, he spent at least 200,000 on her. In return, Su Luofei only gave him a few handmade trinkets. The main reason for their breakup was that Su Luofei wanted to buy a bag costing over 10,000 yuan, but her then-boyfriend refused because he couldn't afford it. Su Luofei called him useless and even told him to take out a loan from a lending platform. Her ex-boyfriend didn't agree, and instead, he broke up with her and demanded she return the money he had previously transferred to her. Su Luofei flew into a rage, unleashing a furious 60-second voice message, claiming it was compensation for her lost youth and refusing to give back a single cent. They had been in a relationship for over a year, with extensive chat logs that served as solid proof of Su Luofei's character. No matter how pitiful Su Luofei tries to act now, nobody believes her anymore. Her ex-boyfriend ended up as the fall guy, and netizens are urging him to file a lawsuit to get his money back. 19. Su Luofei's ex-boyfriend is actually quite sharp. The final screenshot shows Su Luofei begging to get back together, and he agreed. Su Luofei thought she had her boyfriend wrapped around her finger, a little more playing the victim, and she'd be set for life. In the end, her ex-boyfriend posted all their chat logs online. He came out as the biggest victim, gaining a massive following. My guess is, her ex had put up with her for far too long. Besides, Su Luofei was already famous by then. Why on earth would he take her back? Even if he agreed, his parents never would. That juicy gossip was so satisfying. It even gave me a great night's sleep. Over a month later, Su Luofei returned, and by her side was her savior, Qin An Yuan. In this lifetime, they ended up together after all. Su Luofei looked at us with her head held high, like a victorious rooster. Let me introduce you to my boyfriend, Qin An Yuan. He's an angel investor with assets in the hundreds of millions. He has a keen eye for opportunities and is incredibly impressive. Indeed, he's a master at deception. Qin An Yuan has done a lot of good deeds. To outsiders, he appears to be a highly successful philanthropist. I nodded obediently. You two are a perfect match. A talented man and a beautiful woman, Li Xiaoxi and Chen Lin chimed in from the side, each offering their congratulations. I could tell exactly what they were thinking just by looking at their faces. With such a wealthy boyfriend, Su Luofei will probably move out. How nice for her. 20. Su Luofei beamed with pride. Alright, I came back today specifically to treat you all to a meal. My boyfriend booked a buffet at a 5-star hotel. Seafood and durian. All you can eat. There's no such thing as a free lunch. I simply didn't believe Su Luofei would let us get the better end of the deal. The three of us exchanged a look and declined. Su Luofei stared at us coldly. Can't you even do me this small favor? You won't even come for a meal. Do you look down on me that much? Qin An Yuan glanced at me and said with a hint of melancholy, Feifei says you're her best friends, that she's relied on your care all these years. As her boyfriend, it's only right I treat you to a meal, isn't it? Give me a break. The sheer audacity to lie through his teeth is impressive. We never took care of Su Luofei, no matter how much Su Luofei pleaded. We stood our ground and refused. We were dead set on not eating that meal, worried it would give us indigestion. Su Luofei's face turned as black as coal. I was going to introduce you to some wealthy people, but I see you have no vision. I exchanged a look with my other two roommates, as expected. This is no ordinary buffet. I smiled at her and said, I know my place. Rich people aren't blind. Why would they ever be interested in someone as plain and ordinary as me? Li Xiaoxi nodded in agreement. I'm just a nobody. I don't deserve it. Feifei, you're so pretty. You're the one who fits in with them. Su Luofei snorted coldly. Good, you understand. You'd better make the most of this opportunity. Once it's gone for good. I almost laughed out loud. It was such an obvious trap. Only a fool would fall for it, and yet, Chen Lin went. Even after Xiaoxi Li and I tried to talk her out of it, she still went. All I could do was secretly slip her a can of pepper spray, hoping it might help. 21. After they left, Li Xiaoxi and I both sighed in unison, completely baffled as to why Chen Lin ended up going with them. I sent her a WeChat message. Be careful, she's up to no good, and her boyfriend doesn't seem like a good guy either. Chen Lin didn't reply. I have no idea what she's thinking. If it weren't for the fact that she helped my parents in a past life, I probably wouldn't have said another word. Sometimes, you just have to let people make their own choices and live with the consequences. It wasn't long before Su Luofei sent a photo of their dinner. The two portly, middle-aged men sitting in the center were the so-called wealthy gentlemen she had mentioned. Chen Lin was all smiles, looking genuinely happy. Su Luofei then sent another photo, this time of two luxury car keys. Both of them have taken a liking to Chen Lin. Soon, she'll be living in a villa and driving luxury cars, while the rest of you are stuck grinding away for a measly 3,000 a month. I don't believe Chen Lin would choose them. Those two clearly have families, and Chen Lin despises homewreckers the most. Chen Lin must have had another reason. Neither Li Xiaoxi nor I acknowledged her. We just acted like we never saw the messages. Our attitude probably infuriated Su Luofei. She kept spamming photos in the group chat, and in the end, they even went to a hotel suite together. Li Xiaoxi and I were growing increasingly worried about Chen Lin. We tried calling her, but there was no answer, and our messages went unanswered too. Just as we were about to find Teacher Li to report her missing, Chen Lin called us. Her voice was very quiet, and there was the sound of running water in the background. She was probably in the bathroom. Don't panic, I'm fine. I'm taking care of something important, trust me. Hearing her say that, we finally felt a little more at ease. 22. Su Luofei then posted another batch of photos, stacks of cash, glittering jewelry, and designer handbags. Of course, a few more men and some young women showed up. I thought they were about to engage in some shady deal, but then Qin An Yuan started talking about investments. His pitch was different from the usual hype-driven pyramid schemes. A group of men, each with a beauty in their arms, listened to his investment spiel. The guys were completely mesmerized, nodding their heads in a daze. Chen Lin and Su Luofei sat on either side of Qin An Yuan, with Chen Lin gazing at him with undisguised admiration. Li Xiaoxi and I were completely baffled, utterly unable to fathom what Chen Lin was up to. Knowing her as we did, there was no way she would ever be interested in a man like Qin An Yuan. I had a rough idea of her reasons and could only hope her plan would work. Su Luofei spent the whole evening sending photos and videos, and finally asked us, there's a project, guaranteed to make money, want in. She even said that if it weren't for our old school ties, she'd never have told us about this money-making opportunity. I almost laughed out loud. After all that, It just came down to an investment pitch. I've never met a real angel investor, but anyone who uses a woman as bait to lure investors is definitely not a legitimate one. Too bad I'm broke. I've only got 800 left for the month. Is that even enough to invest? I replied half-heartedly. We're all students anyway. I seriously doubt she'd even bat an eye at a measly 800. Li Xiaoxi also said she was broke and would think about investing when she had some money. 23. I thought that was the end of it. Then, Su Luofei sent another message. Why don't you come do some part-time work? 500 a pop, just chatting with clients. Chen Lin made 500 yesterday. That's her whole week's living expenses covered. 500 bucks for a whole night with some old guy. I thought it'd be at least a couple thousand, if not tens of thousands. And this is it. How stingy can you get? Go earn it yourself. I'm not about to embarrass myself, by the way. Did your parents even agree to you doing this line of work? Su Luofei lost her cool again, saying I deserve to be poor for the rest of my life. I'm not her mother. Of course I wasn't going to indulge her. I fired back with something even nastier. Su Luofei was absolutely furious. She went straight to Teacher Li to request a leave of absence, saying she didn't want to be in the same class as me and was going off to make some serious money. Teacher Li came to ask us what happened. I showed her the chat history from the group, though I did delete the parts involving Chen Lin. Teacher Li's face grew darker and darker. She made a copy of the chat logs to take with her. I sighed. I heard Su Luofei has been recruiting people everywhere for part-time jobs. We're all classmates. How could she do something like that? Whatever Su Luofei wants to do, I'm determined to make sure she doesn't get her way. Teacher Li assured me he would handle the matter properly, urging me to focus on my studies and under no circumstances take on that part-time job. There was no way I was going, given Su Luofei's hatred for me. If I had shown up, I wouldn't have gotten out of there unscathed. 24. Within a couple of days, Su Luofei was expelled from the school, and the students who went to the part-time job received a verbal warning from their academic advisor. Chen Lin took a leave of absence from school without hesitation. She said she had something important to take care of and told us not to worry. No matter how much we tried to persuade her, it made no difference. Now, it's just Li Xiaoxi and me left in the dorm room. Su Luofei came to the school with her parents and made a scene twice. She only wants to take a one-year leave, not get expelled. Unfortunately for her, the school stood its ground this time. They presented a pile of evidence and told Su Luofei to get lost. Su Luofei had recruited many girls for part-time work, using a mix of coaxing and deception. She even withheld payment from some. When the teachers questioned them, the girls obediently handed over their chat records. In the end, Su Luofei slunk away in disgrace. The school even held a special assembly because of her, warning students not to chase get-rich-quick schemes. The only real path, they emphasized, is to study diligently and pursue legitimate employment. Su Luofei was blacklisted by the school and can't even get through the front gate. I'm staying put on campus and won't go out unless absolutely necessary. Su Luofei has gone off the deep end, seeking revenge left and right. She got Qin on Yuan to help her, and her ex-boyfriend ended up in the hospital. She even had people rough up that homeless guy locked up in the detention center waiting for sentencing. Not just once but several times. Chen Lin has already infiltrated their group. She's the one who told us not to leave campus. Su Luofei's parents sold their house and poured all their savings into investments, dreaming every day of climbing the social ladder. In order to secure more shares, Su Luofei dragged her mother into chasing quick money. It has to be said, Qin On Yuan's brainwashing was remarkably effective. 25. Over a month later, Qin On Yuan and his crew were hauled into the police station, with Su Luofei among them. Chen Lin and I did all of this together. Chen Lin's family used to be quite wealthy. Qin On Yuan swindled her father, taking all their money and leaving him drowning in high-interest loans. Her father ended up jumping to his death. That day, after recognizing Qin On Yuan, she immediately decided to infiltrate their operation, gather evidence, and put Qin On Yuan and his crew behind bars. In my previous life, I was a spirit floating in the air and knew many of Qin On Yuan's secrets. I provided the leads, Chen Lin did the legwork, and we soon handed the evidence over to the police. Initially, Su Luofei and her parents were victims, but in their pursuit of more shares, they became part of the management. The police subsequently classified them as accomplices of Qin On Yuan. Even now, Su Luofei still believes it was a legitimate investment. She even tried discussing IPO shares with the police, urging them to buy in. At first, we thought she was just in denial about reality, but it turns out she's genuinely lost her mind. Su Luafe was committed to a psychiatric hospital. She constantly tells people she's wealthy, sometimes stripping off her clothes in public, claiming she needs to raise money to become an angel investor. Even if Su Luafe was a madwoman, she was a beautiful one with a good figure. Before long, she was pregnant. The hospital performed an induced abortion for her, and after that, her health deteriorated. A few years later, she died in the psychiatric hospital. The homeless man was sentenced to 15 years, Chin Anyuan got 20 years, and Su Luafei's parents were also imprisoned for 2 years. The homeless man's constitution was severely depleted, and he passed away in less than a year. Chin Anyuan ruined many families. Once inside, he received special attention from many, and died within 2 years. After Su Luafei's parents were released from prison, they lost their jobs, their home, and their savings. All they were left with was a host of illnesses. Unable to afford proper medication, they survived on painkillers. The end. Story 2. My husband won 30 million in the lottery and said he wants to divorce me. I packed my things overnight and fled back to my hometown. 2 weeks later, extreme heat arrived, leaving corpses strewn everywhere. I huddled in my fully stocked rural villa, eating popsicles one after another. My husband took our son and his childhood sweetheart to beg pitifully in the neighborhood. Greedily licking the last drop of water they managed to scrounge, while comforting themselves. I have money, money can buy everything. I remembered how in my past life they locked me in the basement, where I died of dehydration. Money, try buying your own lives first. 1. After dying from dehydration in extreme heat, I returned to the day my husband asked for a divorce. Neve is already pregnant. I warn you not to cling on any longer. Damien shoved me violently in his rage, spittle flying everywhere. His childhood sweetheart Neve hid behind him, coaxing my son with candy, feeling the cool breeze from the air conditioner. The suffocating sensation of being scorched by the heat and dying from dehydration had just faded. I hurriedly took several deep breaths of fresh air, staring at Damien's ferocious expression before me. I suppressed my rising hatred and immediately agreed to divorce him. He froze momentarily, not expecting me to give in so easily, and said with suspicion in his eyes, "Really, you're not playing some trick, are you?" I glanced at the calendar on my phone. Only 7 days left until the high-temperature apocalypse. Time is running out. Either we go to the Civil Affairs Bureau now, or I walk away. Damien, it's your call. My son urged with a look of disdain. Who cares if she's got tricks up her sleeve? An old woman like her doesn't deserve to be my mother. Only if you divorce her can I acknowledge Neve as my mother. Neve cast a shy and bashful glance upon hearing this. Damien shuddered all over and eagerly rushed into the car with me to head to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Throughout the journey, Damien kept grinning foolishly, while our son didn't even glance at me, nestling in Neve's arms full of attachment. I struggled to suppress the urge to drive all 3 of them off the overpass. During the scorching apocalypse, he locked me in the basement with his son and childhood sweetheart, leaving me to suffer from the heat, dehydrate, and die. In this life, I swear to make all 3 of them pay in blood. When dividing the assets, I only took my savings card from all these years. 400,000 yuan. Damien couldn't help boasting. See how good I am to you. You've been eating and living at my place for so many years without paying rent. My heart was full of sarcasm as I struggled to control the urge to slap him. Since you're being so sensible about the divorce, I'll give you an extra 100k to keep you from ending up homeless and scavenging for food. I gladly accepted the 100k Damien transferred to me. People may hold grudges against idiots, but they'll never turn down money. Besides, I know Damien is quite wealthy now. 3 days ago, he won a 30 million lottery jackpot and wanted to live happily with his childhood sweetheart before claiming the prize, so he went through great lengths to divorce me. In my previous life, I was unaware of this. A husband who thinks he's passable and a third-grade son make me want to do my best to protect my family, until I saw my husband's childhood sweetheart Neve post an intimate photo of the two on social media, captioned, "After all these years, half a life wasted, going in circles. It's still you." In the photo, Damien was smiling, completely different from his usual impatient demeanor, thinking about how the whole family treated me after Neve's return. My husband sneered at me, saying I only know to hold out my palm and ask men for money, showing no self-respect or self-love. my elementary school son resented me for not letting him play games or eat snacks, calling me a bitch and a bad person. In my previous life, I rushed to the scene and slapped Neve, shouting that she was a slut who seduced other women's husbands, only to be locked in the basement by them. How could a slap make up for the agony of being burned to death in my past life? I want them to die 1,000 times more painfully than I did, coming out of the Civil Affairs Bureau. I watched as my son threw himself into Neve's arms, while Damien happily pulled them both close, the picture-perfect family laughing in triumph. Laugh now, soon you won't be laughing anymore. After returning home, I immediately started planning how to stock up on supplies to protect myself. Halfway through the plan, Damien returned with his son. Seeing the triumphant look on his face, I guessed he'd already gotten his hands on the 30 million. I couldn't be bothered with them and continued sketching on my tablet, but the boy ran up to me shouting, "Dad and I are going to Sonia. Pack our things right now. I'm not your nanny. Go find whoever you want." My son threw a glass at me with venom. "You're my mother. You're supposed to slave away from me, otherwise I'll get Dad to beat you." The shattered glass cut my leg. Seeing my son's self-righteous expression, I wished I could beat this little bastard to death, too. Before having a child, I was a company executive, but my son couldn't be left alone. He'd wail uncontrollably whenever I wasn't around. For him, I became a housewife for 10 years, in the previous life when the heatwave came. Their family heartily enjoyed the daily resources I had stockpiled, living in great comfort. Meanwhile, I was left barely alive in the basement. I begged my son to spare my life, but to please Neve, he sealed the basement vents and let me pass out. I didn't die instantly. Instead, I watched as they took a cleaver and stabbed into my body. In my final moments, I heard their greedy shouts, "Quick, get a basin. The blood is drinkable too." She weighs over 100 pounds. That's enough to keep us drinking for a while. My son lunged forward, the first to sink his teeth into my vein. Take a step back, and the world is vast. Endure for a moment, and the anger only grows. I slapped my son across the face, leaving his cheeks swollen and red. He lunged at me trying to bite, shouting for me to go back to the countryside. I glanced at Damien who was watching the show and calmly said, "If you don't discipline the child, I won't go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the marriage certificate in 30 days. Only then did he step in to mediate. "The child is yours too. What's the big deal about packing his clothes? Did I asexually reproduce my son?" Unable to out-argue me, Damien awkwardly packed some short-sleeved shirts and shorts, forcibly dragging our son who was making faces at me out the door. Before leaving, he even pretended to be sentimental and asked me to stay for a while. I didn't agree. Urban buildings will quickly lose water and power after the apocalypse, becoming not only useless but also vulnerable to attacks from neighbors. In this life, let this place become the burial ground for the Damien family. As soon as Damien and his son left, I rushed into the basement to rummage through everything. During the 3-year special period, I developed a habit of stockpiling supplies, and the basement was filled with food I stored. In this life, I'm taking it all with me. 20 cases of mineral water. In this scorching apocalypse, water is the most scarce resource. I must take them. 7 bags of rice, flour, oil, and groceries. My back suffered terribly hauling these into the basement. Time to bring them home. The assorted vegetables grown on the balcony. I worked so hard to cultivate these. How could I leave them for those damn bastards? Light summer clothes and quilts. Who needs clothes or blankets in this heat? I packed and tossed them into the donation bin downstairs, left only a pile of long-sleeved winter clothes and thick quilts for the Damien family. I casually picked up the hammer from the toolbox and gave the air conditioner a few heavy blows, eliciting pitiful groans from the already battered unit. I hope the 3 of them have strong constitutions, able to stay lively without food or water while wearing long sleeves in the relentless 65-degree heat, while struggling to empty this house. I inadvertently caught sight of a familiar-looking cleaver. My son loved meat. This was originally for chopping bones, but in my past life, it became their tool for dismembering me and drinking my blood. After staring at it for a moment, I casually took it out from the cabinet and placed it on the kitchen counter. Finally, I looked around the seemingly unchanged house that was actually empty of supplies. I called and ordered a few more surveillance cameras, installing them in hidden locations. By the time I finished handling everything, it was already past 2 p.m. Despite the scorching heat outside, I hurriedly drove back to my hometown with my belongings. I'm an orphan. My parents passed away one after another during my high school years, leaving me only a piece of homestead land. The kind elderly folks in the village pooled together, some giving 500, others 1,000, to support me, a female college student. Before giving birth, I was a workaholic. Despite Damien's objections, I returned to my hometown and built this 3-story villa, even going door to door to repay debts by kowtowing on the day the house was completed. When laying the foundation, most villagers came to help. We used the best construction materials and installed 8 solar panels to protect against potential wild animals from the mountains. We even installed an electric fence around the property. Elderly neighbors, worried the house might fall into disuse during my long absences, dug vegetable plots, drilled a well, and regularly came to maintain the yard. Despite the 35-degree heat, standing in the fruit-laden courtyard, I couldn't help but laugh aloud. I'm grateful for my past stubbornness. This fully equipped countryside villa nestled between mountains and rivers has now become my greatest asset for surviving extreme heat and rescuing fellow villagers. With just 1 week left before the apocalypse arrives, I started inspecting the hardware conditions of my small villa. I contacted workers to install a water purification system and also bought several large household batteries and power banks. Even if the solar panels fail later, we can still rely on self-generated electricity to get by. We also need sufficient cooling sources. Although the house is equipped with a full set of fresh air conditioning systems, I still bought 7 or 8 standing fans and matching humidifiers just to be safe, ensuring we can enjoy cool breezes comfortably even after the apocalypse. The home freezers weren't enough either. I directly cleared out an entire shelf of commercial freezers, 3 for each floor from the first to the third, plus the basement. Fortunately, my house is spacious enough that stacking all these things doesn't make it feel crowded at all. 3. Looking at the layout of my home, I immediately called to order 5 extra-large water storage barrels for household fish tanks, a row of home breeding cages, and a set of indoor gardening tools, waiting for the workers to deliver them the next day. After these purchases, my funds were nearly depleted. Without hesitation, I opened my phone and frantically downloaded loan apps, borrowing close to 1,000,000 yuan from them. By the time I finished installing the water purification system, it was already late at night. I hastily ate a bite of food and lay in bed to conserve energy, preparing for the big battle tomorrow. On the second day, I started preparing daily necessities, not knowing how long the high-temperature apocalypse would last. I focused solely on quantity rather than cost when shopping. At the market, I bought dozens of freshly slaughtered cattle, sheep, pigs, and chickens, asking the vendors to cut and sort them. I also purchased a batch of easy-to-raise rabbits and quail, planning to keep them in a small room on the 3rd floor as a fresh meat reserve. Heat-resistant vegetable seeds and fertilizers were also stockpiled in bulk. With time to spare, I rushed into the wholesale supermarket. I started with 400 pounds each of rice and flour, followed by 500 barrels of bottled water. Various seasonings were also tossed into the shopping cart by the box. I also bought quite a few instant foods like self-heating rice and mini hot pots. These could keep me full if cooking becomes impossible later. Realizing there was still some time before doomsday arrived, I added dozens of boxes of snacks, drinks, and fruits to my haul. Then came all kinds of daily necessities, kitchenware, and tableware. I practically wanted to clear the entire shelf. The shop owner was shocked at checkout, so I had to explain that these were donations. Only then did he cheerfully arrange a delivery truck to send my supplies back to the village. After leaving the supermarket, I headed to a local fish farm and bought 10 each of 5 hardy fish species, along with some fry to stock my fish pond. Passing by a clothing store, I packed up all the lightweight, quick-drying clothes and grabbed some winter wear just in case. Finally, I rushed into the pharmacy and bought dozens of boxes of every type of medicine available, especially for heatstroke, dehydration, and insect bites. I cleared out every brand on the shelves. I drive a 7-seater car, and it took me 3 trips back and forth to haul all the purchased items back home. After finishing everything, I opened my phone to check how the Damien family was doing. As soon as I opened my social feed, I was greeted by Damien's big face. It's not hard to see they're having a great time in Sanya, staying at star-rated hotels costing thousands per night, dining on freshly caught seafood. Even their son received a full set of electronic gadgets from Neve. Watching the 3 of them thoroughly enjoying themselves, I couldn't help but smile with motherly affection. Play on, enjoy what will be the final revelry of your lives. The next day I went door to door in the village to confirm headcounts. Upon returning home, I promptly ordered 10 drones to facilitate material transportation when the time comes. After some thought, I ordered another batch of security systems and several stun guns. In the following days, I kept organizing supplies and found time to buy myself 4 new iPads, downloading categorized novels, dramas, and anime for post-apocalyptic entertainment. But as the extreme heat approached, the weather showed no signs of change. Could it be that with my rebirth, the extreme heat would no longer return? Although I don't want to see apocalyptic scenes again. The thought of Damien's family surviving with huge sums of money fills me with inexplicable anger. But the very next day, the weather changed drastically. It had just rained yesterday, yet the temperature suddenly soared. I checked my phone, 11 a.m., 45 degrees Celsius, 11:15 a.m., 48 degrees Celsius, 12 p.m., 50 degrees Celsius. The weather app kept flashing red heat warnings. Netizens were also lamenting, working on such a hot day. I'm not tired, just cursed. 3 people already collapsed from heatstroke at the company. This year's temperatures are insane. Maybe it's the start of a heatwave apocalypse. We'll all be baked to death. My heart sank deeper. It's really happening. In the previous life, it was the same. After the rain, temperatures rose sharply, soaring directly to 60 degrees the next afternoon and remaining high. Many people died from heatstroke and dehydration. Caught unprepared, I replied under a post about the high-temperature apocalypse, saying this year's temperatures were abnormal and advising people to stock up on supplies just in case, only to be met with ridicule. Too much fiction rotted your brain. You really think the world's ending? What's the point of stockpiling in this heat? Everything will just spoil. The god of takeout will provide me with food, no need for the obsessed to worry. Then my reply was deleted by the platform, with the reason being, maliciously inciting panic. Before I could continue trying, my account was gone. I put away my phone, knowing it's hard to persuade those doomed to perish, only hoping my brief reply would draw some people's attention. Is Greer at home? Heard you're back from the city. Uncle needs to ask you a favor. I opened the gate to find the village chief standing there. It's just a 15-minute walk from the village committee to my house, yet he was already drenched in sweat. Several folks at the village entrance got injured while working in the fields today. I noticed you have a car. Could you possibly help? I nodded and drove the elderly folks around. Along the way, I kept preaching about the impending apocalypse until they were dizzy. We ended up loading the car full of supplies before heading home. Just got home when my phone alerted me with the monitoring app notification. I checked and sure enough, Damien had returned with our son and Neve. The moment they stepped inside, they blasted the AC while cursing the unbearable heat. Our son demanded ice cream, but Damien just collapsed on the couch motionless. It was Neve who ordered takeout to stop the child's wailing. Shortly after eating, Damien took Neve to their room for some intimate time. Little did they know that when they woke up, they'd face a world completely transformed. On July 7th, the high temperatures arrived as expected. I turned on both the air conditioner and humidifier, set to 26 degrees, and gazed at the yellowed plant leaves outside scorched by the heat, relieved that everything was properly arranged. The TV continuously reported various heat-related incidents. The Midwest of the United States facing floods and extreme heat, the Pamir Plateau enduring prolonged high temperatures with many people suffering heatstroke. Bharat has already seen 85 heatstroke deaths, companies halted operations, schools suspended classes, and aside from some large chain supermarkets still open, most other businesses had shut down. Netizens also began to panic. Some furiously cursed the damned weather online, others angrily quit their jobs to stay home. While some sensed something amiss and started stockpiling supplies, especially by 8 p.m. when it's completely dark, the temperature shows no sign of dropping, for more and more people are starting to go out to buy bottled water just to be safe. The 3 who were still lazing at home with the AC on also saw the related posts. Neve snuggled in Damien's arms and whispered softly, "Brother, should we go out and buy some water too? My wife loves hoarding stuff. There's everything in the basement." "Why bother with that? I'm carrying your son and just want to eat something delicious." Damien impatiently threw the phone to Neve. "What can't money buy? Just order a delivery service." The son snatched the phone and ordered a bunch of things for himself. Unfortunately, the weather outside was so scorching hot that eggs would cook in minutes. The three people's orders didn't arrive until 10 p.m. I checked the supplies they bought. Apart from 3 luxurious meals, there was only a pile of snacks and drinks that kids love. Damien was still cursing the delivery guy while his son, dizzy with hunger, scooped up a handful of melted ice cream from the ground and shoved it into his mouth. Starving ghost reincarnation, just as useless as your mother. With all the money I have, how could I possibly let you starve? Damien slapped his son on the head, enraging the boy, who then threw takeout food at him. The meal was scattered everywhere, completely ruined. Neve gently persuaded him a few words, but the resentment on the son's face still didn't fade. In the previous life, Damien left all the child-rearing responsibilities to me. When in a good mood, he'd buy some snacks for our son or take him to the amusement park a few times. When not in the mood, he'd claim working alone to support the family was too exhausting and tell our son to come to me. Over time, our son grew increasingly resentful toward me, now that I'm gone. The two of them are together day and night. Though our son is rebellious, he's not stupid. He quickly saw through this so-called good father's true nature. With Neve as the catalyst and the shadow of apocalyptic survival looming, their days are going to be quite challenging. The night was thick with darkness, yet the temperature showed no intention of dropping. In my previous life, I spent my last days entirely in the basement, almost completely unaware of any news, facing an unknown fate. My heart felt as heavy as a stone. Fortunately, my home is well stocked with supplies. There's no problem that can't be solved with a hot pot meal. If one doesn't work, then two will. I rummaged through the fridge for tripe, shrimp paste, duck intestines, fatty beef and lamb, preserved vegetables, enoki mushrooms, and made myself a lavish spicy hot pot. Feeling it wasn't enough, I even took out my iPad to watch my own swordsman. Just as I was enjoying the meal, my phone rang. It was Damien, who had discovered the basement was completely empty. Where did all the food in the house go? And why haven't you called someone to fix the AC? Are you trying to kill me? I paid for those things, so of course I took them. I don't use the AC. Why should I pay to fix it? Greer, you're so petty for trying to take such small advantages. No wonder you can't make money. Yeah. I'm poor and proud of it. Since you're so rich, go buy a new one then, dumbass. He wanted to curse at me again. But I'm no longer the woman from my past life who'd endure his venting without fighting back. With a tap of my finger, I hung up directly, checking the surveillance. Damien tried calling a few more times, but I'd already powered off. Unable to get through, he stormed into the basement searching for food, ultimately throwing a useless tantrum. There's not a single bite to eat at home. The AC isn't working either, and our son keeps wasting food. I entrusted this household to you. How can you fail at managing such simple matters? Neve froze in place from his shouting. Now you think your childhood sweetheart isn't good enough. This is the perfect woman you've been obsessing over. So annoying. If we don't have it, just go buy it. Their son was playing with toy cars in the living room, glaring impatiently at Damien. Damien didn't give him a friendly look either. With such high temperatures outside, no delivery riders are accepting orders. You talk so lightly about it. Why don't you go yourself? The son casually pulled out a bag of chips. If there's no food, there's still snacks. If I get hungry, I'll just have mom bring something over. Damien's face turned red with anger at his son. Neve seized this opportunity, whispering something continuously by Damien's side. Watching the three of them on screen with their own hidden agendas, I casually boiled some duck intestines, dipping them in the spicy oil sauce. Utterly tender and refreshing. By noon on the second day of the heatwave, temperatures soared to 60 degrees as in the previous life. Most leaves in the yard curled up, and despite setting up a shade canopy in advance, its effect was minimal. I had no choice but to reluctantly harvest all the existing vegetables and store them in the fridge to keep them fresh. While the electricity and internet are still functioning normally, I turn on the TV. The news is broadcasting. Citizens are advised to stay safely at home as the extreme heat persists. The government has made preparations for heavy rainfall, so please wait patiently. I don't know what the future holds and try to search for some information online. I notice many people are lamenting in distress. We didn't stock up on supplies, and now we're about to run out of food at home. The water pipe broke and I reported it for repair 2 days ago, but no one dared to come. I'll pay $500. Is there anyone who can deliver 2 bottles of water to me, folks? My air conditioner is broken. Now it's like a big steamer. Can anyone come to save me? I turned off my phone, trying to forget everything I just saw. I don't have the capacity to protect everyone. All I can do is protect myself, and if I have any energy left, protect those around me. Thinking of this, I maneuvered the drone out for a flight. Every household in the village had prepared some food and water, and for now there were no major issues. Watching the elderly wave at the drone, I finally felt a glimmer of comfort. On the 6th day of the heatwave apocalypse, the power went out. The temperature remained stubbornly steady, stubbornly holding at 65 degrees without dropping. 5. With such scorching temperatures, many forest areas have experienced spontaneous combustion, and wildfires have spread everywhere, completely burning down numerous mountain villages overnight. Less than a week into the apocalypse, hundreds have already lost their lives, some from heatstroke, others from dehydration due to extreme heat. A joint statement from multiple departments urges everyone to stay indoors and take measures to prevent heatstroke. With the government committing to airdrop supplies every 3 days and vowing not to abandon any citizen, I checked the surveillance footage from home. The 3 individuals looked sallow and emaciated. Damien was completely naked, lying in the bathtub with Neve to cool down. Their son was squeezed onto the floor, leaning against the tub to catch some coolness, and when the heat became unbearable, he would dunk his head into the bathtub to cool off. However, with the indoor temperature at 65 degrees, the water in the bathtub soon began emitting waves of heat. The son was so distressed that he rolled and crawled on the floor, but Damien and Neve were too preoccupied with themselves to care about him. Neve took the initiative to bring up the matter of supplies. "Brother, we're running low on water and food at home, and no one is accepting orders outside. Why don't you go out and get some airdropped supplies? You want me to go out in this scorching heat? Are you trying to kill me? Here's some money, you go out and get it." The son watched as Damien and the others shirked responsibility everywhere. He threw himself on the floor, crying and throwing a tantrum, demanding that Neve leave, or else he wouldn't acknowledge her as his mother. Neve was unwilling, gently rubbing against Damien's arm while coquettishly saying, "I just got pregnant with your child, and I'm so delicate, if I go out, I'll surely faint from the sun." Unlike Phoenix, who's strong and runs fast, seeing the situation, the son quickly got up from the floor and hid back in his room. Damien cursed a few times before finally taking out his phone and tapping a few times. A message popped up in the neighborhood group chat. "I hadn't had time to leave yet. Unit 103 wants to buy 10 bottles of water and any food. Name your price. As the old saying goes, don't flash your wealth." Damien must have water in his brain, practically begging to get robbed. When I checked the surveillance footage in the afternoon, sure enough, I saw quite a show. Damien managed to get supplies in the neighborhood from Nash, the infamous troublemaker in our building. Unfortunately, the $1,000 Damien offered couldn't satisfy Nash's greed. 1,000? Are you kidding me? Give me 10 or 20 grand to spend, and I'll hand over the water. A few bottles of water and some crappy bread for 10 grand. Are you out of your damn mind? Before Damien could finish, the man punched him to the ground. Damien screamed in terror about calling the police, only for Nash to grin and slap him again. "In this scorching heat, the cops won't save you in time. Either pay up, or I'll slaughter your whole family and eat them as meat." Too terrified to resist the towering Nash, Damien tremblingly pulled out his phone and transferred 10,000. As Nash left, he leered at Neve. "Such a pretty thing, wasted on this spineless shrimp." "Big Brother's got water and food in room 702. Come find me when you're starving, and I'll make sure you're well fed." The moment Nash stepped out, Damien flew into a rage and attacked Neve, flirting with everyone. "You see, I knew you were a loose woman. If you keep making eyes at other men again, you won't get a single penny from me anymore." Neve begged on her knees after being beaten by him. Only then did Damien stop. 6. Turning around, she saw her son had already devoured the water and bread greedily. Bread crumbs were scattered everywhere, leaving nothing for the others. Damien was so furious that he immediately locked his son in the basement and didn't let him out until evening. After this incident, the 3 members of the Damien family entered a complete Cold War. I happily hummed a tune while preparing to make braised pork, rich, savory, and delicious, paired with northeastern rice. Eating 3 bowls in one go would be no problem. Just as I was about to eat, I saw an alert from my home's power grid monitoring system. The village chief was standing at my doorstep with several younger uncles, carrying tools like hoes and axes behind them. A chill instantly rose from the soles of my feet. Ding-a-ling, the doorbell rang again. "Greer, open the door for Uncle." The village chief's words came through the walkie-talkie like a death warrant. I used to find this voice kind and endearing. But now it seems terrifying. I casually picked up a stun gun before running to the courtyard gate to ask what was the matter. Hearing my response, the village chief anxiously spoke. Uncle was afraid the trees on the back mountain would catch fire, so he took people to cut a fire break while the temperature dropped slightly today. Several people are suffering from heatstroke and can barely hold on. Do you have any medicine at home? I picked up the binoculars and looked at the back mountain. Sure enough, a ring of withered trees had disappeared behind the hill. Only then did I feel relieved and went out with the medicine. The village chief took a few bottles of Huxiangzhengqi shui from the box and forcefully pushed the rest back into my hands. We have enough with these. Times are unstable now. You should keep the rest for yourself. After saying this, he left with his men, watching Uncle Ezekiel's hunched back as he walked away. I felt somewhat melancholy. How much longer will this heat last, and how long can our mutual aid situation continue? I placed the stun gun I'd been gripping tightly at the doorway and went back inside to bury myself in sleep. I don't know if my kindness in this apocalypse is right, and this version of myself that distrusts everyone feels unfamiliar. The apocalypse changes people too much. After another 10 days or so, the situation in the village began to deteriorate. Despite the village chief's daily radio broadcasts of encouraging news, many still collapsed due to food shortages. My drone went out daily loaded with food and returned with potatoes, sweet potatoes, and other items the elderly sent me. The village chief even wrote me a note, advising me not to flaunt my wealth and to focus more on myself, in contrast to the gloom brought by the village news. The surveillance footage from the Damien family was full of good news. Damien looked swollen and pale, as if he didn't have long to live. On the other hand, Neve and their son showed little change. Upon carefully reviewing the footage, I noticed that the day after Nash arrived, she sneaked out of the house and returned with disheveled clothes, carrying a bag of small bread rolls. Just as her son ran into her, Neve used the bread to lure her son into keeping watch for her, and the two of them ate with great relish. How could it be right for only Damien to go hungry in the whole family? I carefully selected a few angles, took a series of enthusiastic photos of the seafood feast with iced watermelon in front of me, and posted a WeChat moment visible only to Damien. It wasn't long before Damien called. As soon as I answered, there was an ear-splitting roar. "Greer, where are you? How come you still get to eat watermelon?" I feigned confusion and said, "Eating watermelon? Haven't you had it before?" Damien kept pestering me about my whereabouts, but I ignored him. Deliberately making loud slurping sounds while eating the watermelon, Damien fell silent on the other end, then softened his voice and began pleading, "Honey, I was wrong. I was completely bewitched by that little bitch Neve. Only now do I realize you're the most important woman in my life. Both our son and I miss you terribly. Could you bring some food and come see us?" I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. "You bite the hand that feeds you, and now you remember how good I was to you. I've stockpiled so much food at home, and you still expect me to rescue your family of 3, go eat shit, food, what food?" Before Damien could finish speaking, I hung up the phone and promptly deleted the social media post. Let them torment each other. In my previous life, none of the 3 were innocent in my tragic death. In this life, how could I let them live so prosperously? Damien, watching from the surveillance, saw me hang up the phone and angrily threw his phone onto the couch before rummaging through the house for food. Sure enough, plenty of food was found under the thick quilt. Damien viciously stuffed the bread into his mouth and took a big gulp of mineral water. "You two bastards, you actually ate behind my back. This was left for me by my wife." He ate and drank, quickly finishing off several small buns. Neve's voice trembled. "Your wife, my ass. I earned that, leave some for me." 7. Damien stared hard at Neve. "You earned it? Where'd you earn it? Did you fucking sell yourself?" Neve rolled her eyes a few times. I didn't mean to. There's no food at home. I was so hungry I felt dizzy. When Phoenix said it, I just," the son exclaimed. "It wasn't me. It was that bitch who went on her own. If it weren't for you egging me on, why would I not share with my brother? My brother is the father of my future child after all." The son tried to explain further, but Damien knocked him unconscious with a few punches. "I don't care whose idea it was." He glared darkly at Neve. "You're my woman, carrying my child in your belly. You have me in your heart. Only after the apocalypse ends can we live properly. Isn't that right?" Neve trembled as she nodded. helping Damien lift their son and throw him into the basement. From that day on, Neve frequently went alone to the 7th floor, each time returning with some food. Damien had food but couldn't be bothered to share with Neve, greedily devouring the lion's share himself and only tossing scraps for Neve to barely survive on. His mental state deteriorated further. One day he'd violently assault Neve, the next he'd kneel begging, promising wealth and all good things if only Neve could endure a little longer. Neve's belly grew larger while her body withered away at alarming speed. On the surveillance footage, she huddled in a corner gnawing bread. Her face twisted with venomous hatred as she stared at Damien. It seems their day of dog-eat-dog conflict is coming. 11. On the first day of August, something happened to the Damien family. After finishing a dry piece of bread, Neve reached out for water but was harshly slapped by Damien. "You fucking bitch, there's only this little water left. How much more do you want to drink?" Neve's hair was disheveled as she furiously threw whatever was at hand towards Damien. "You bastard, this is water I earned. I can drink as much as I want." "Earned? You're fucking proud of selling yourself, you cheap slut who's been ridden by thousands." As he spoke, Damien chugged an entire bottle of water in one go. Neve rushed to snatch it but only managed to lick the last drops from the bottom. She completely broke down. "You useless idiot, that was water I worked so hard to earn. You didn't even leave me a single sip, only thinking about saving yourself. Did you ever consider me and the baby in my womb, always bragging about your money? What fucking good is that now?" Damien's eyes were glazed over as he muttered under his breath, "I've got money now. With money I can buy anything. What's wrong with drinking some of your water?" Neve's face twisted between crying and not crying as she clawed at Damien's face. "What's wrong? This is water I traded for. Spit it out and give it back to me right now." Damien grew frantic, flipping over to pin Neve down while choking her neck with both hands. "You filthy bitch, I should be grateful I'm not disgusted by your dirty money. The little you bring back each day isn't even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. It's all your fault. If my wife were here, this would never happen." Neve was choked until she could barely breathe, forcefully lifting her leg to kick Damien in the groin. The pain made Damien shudder uncontrollably. Involuntarily releasing Neve, she rushed straight to the kitchen, grabbed the cleaver from the counter, and slashed Damien hard, blood instantly spurting out. "Your wife? With a loser like you, do you really think your wife would give you the time of day? Let me tell you the truth, the baby in my belly isn't even yours. If it weren't for your damn money, who the hell would want to be with you? I'm going to Nash's right now, don't you dare bother me." Neve roared while backing towards the door, his hands trembling as he gripped the knife. In the moment he turned, Damien rushed forward and wrested the cleaver from him, lifted it high, then plunged it into Neve's neck. Neve's eyes widened in disbelief as he collapsed. Damien went berserk, grabbing the cleaver to violently stab, pull out, stab, pull out. Only when Neve completely stopped moving did Damien snap out of it and drop the knife. He numbly recovered on the ground for a while before dragging his half-conscious son out from the basement. The son woke up groggily, but before he could scream, Damien shoved him onto Neve's wound, forcing blood to gush into his mouth. Damien laughed maniacally. "Drink up, good son, there's water in blood too. She weighs over 100 pounds anyway. Enough for both of us father and son to drink." The son was initially reluctant, but he was desperately dehydrated. The sound of gulping water echoed through the living room. I felt nauseated, yet my heart was filled with immense satisfaction. 8. My revenge has finally borne fruit. These two bloodthirsty demons won't escape either. 12. I didn't check the surveillance footage for 4 or 5 consecutive days. Instead, many national drones arrived, their bodies painted with the familiar red flag, asking us to help collect soil samples. The village chief led a few young men to dig up the soil, then called to borrow a small bag of reed flower eggs from me, which they hung on the drone. Just after sending off the drone, my phone started ringing. It was Damien. "Honey, our son says he misses his mom." The child on the other end of the phone was crying for his mother. In the past, this would have broken my heart, and I'd have wanted to give our son everything good in the world. But now, I won't. I guess Neve doesn't have much left. The day of reckoning has finally arrived. I hung up the phone and hurried back inside to make a video call. The video connected almost instantly. My son and Damien had somehow managed to clean themselves up spotlessly. With tears in his eyes, my son looked at me and said, "Mom, you're finally willing to talk to me. Dad and I are starving to death." I couldn't care less about my son's pitiful act. I simply turned the camera around to show the 26-degree AC diligently blowing cool air, with fresh fruits laid out on the living room table. Feeling this scene wasn't impactful enough, I took out an old-fashioned popsicle from the fridge and devoured it right in front of them. Damien and his son's eyes nearly popped out. "Honey, how come you still have ice cream over there?" I sneered coldly. "There are plenty of things in my house. None of your business." Damien's eyes lit up, and he nudged his son again. The son gave an insincere apology with fake tears. "Mom, come pick up Dad and me by car. I'll never badmouth you again." I casually tossed the ice cream stick away and pulled out a bottle of cola to drink. "Didn't you say Neve was your good mother? Why should I save you? Because you have big faces." The son froze, and Damien froze too. The next second, Damien punched his son in the face. "It's all your fault, you ungrateful wretch. You'd run off with anyone who gives you attention. Raising you was worse than raising a piece of char siu." The spoiled son couldn't stand this treatment and rushed forward, punching and kicking Damien. "You're the one who told me to call Neve." "Mom, it's all your fault I can't have ice cream. Keep talking nonsense and I'll eat you too." Damien yanked his son down and forced him to apologize to me. "Honey, I truly know I was wrong. It was my momentary foolishness, being deceived by Neve and this heartless creature working together. The child in Neve's belly isn't mine at all. I've already kicked her out. You've always been the one I love most in my heart. Just come pick me up, and I promise I'll live a good life with you from now on." The son's little face was all scrunched up as he played cute for the camera. "Mom, I know I was wrong. You're the best in the whole world. Please come save your baby." I let out an impatient, cold laugh. "What makes you think you're such hot commodities, worth me saving? A selfish bastard who'd sell their own mother for a meal. A lustful piece of shit who can't see past a pair of tits. With that attitude you expect me to save you? Get on your knees and slap yourselves. Keep going till I'm satisfied." Damien gave me a venomous look, gritted his teeth and slapped himself hard across the face, leaving an immediate red mark. My son wasn't to be outdone either, his little hands flailing rapidly. After watching for a while, I found it somewhat dull. "Stop fighting." As soon as I opened my mouth, two bruised faces simultaneously looked up at me with delight. "I'm not satisfied yet. I suggest you two come find me after you're dead." They immediately flew into a rage. Damien leaned menacingly closer to the camera. "You fucking bitch. How dare you mess with me? Don't let me catch you, or I'll eat you alive." 8. The son also shouted beside him. "You vile woman, you don't deserve me supporting you in your old age. Waiting for you to support me in old age is like waiting for me to collect your corpse." I took a sip of iced cola and let out a loud burp. "By the way, catching me isn't hard, just a 3-hour drive away." I didn't continue listening to their curses, raising my hand to hang up the call. With such scorching heat outside, I'd like to see if they dare to come. 13. I waited at home for nearly half a month. Damien and his son didn't come. The country's airdrop of heat-resistant fast-growing crops arrived. The day I planted the seeds in the flower pot, my son called, crying and begging me to save him. Dad was going to eat him. I ignored it. A few days later, the power started flickering back on. I logged into the surveillance system and found the house completely lifeless. Scrolling back, I saw Damien had been eating meat in the basement for days, exhausting all supplies again. He staggered out of the house and never returned. I opened a bottle of red wine for myself to celebrate my vengeance fulfilled and complete rebirth. On the day of the crop harvest, the temperature began to slowly drop. The government immediately dispatched troops to repair power lines and delivered supplies in large quantities. Thanks to our village's unity and mutual aid, there were no fatalities, and under the village chief's leadership, we began assisting surrounding towns, though no one knows when this disaster will end. Just like every time before, when people unite as one, light will eventually emerge. On October 1st, the extreme heat finally ended, and society gradually returned to normal. I immediately drove back to what was once our home. Upon opening the door, 2 skeletons covered in bite marks lay in the living room. I called the police and casually submitted 2 surveillance video clips. They were the 2 clips showing Damien killing Neve and our son. It would be best if Damien died, but if not, he should face legal punishment. Justice may be delayed, but it will never be absent. 3 days later, the police found Damien's mummified corpse on the road leading to my home. I took the death certificate to the Civil Affairs Bureau to withdraw the divorce application, legally inherited the remaining $16 million in Damien's bank account. After finishing these matters, I drove back to the village, following the village chief's suggestion. I collaborated with the village committee on a new type of plant cultivation greenhouse to provide jobs for young people working away from home. Walking through the sea of red paper on the ground, I stepped toward my brand new future. Story 2. When I woke up, I found myself reborn 7 days before the outbreak of a zombie virus, on the very day my boyfriend's mother had arranged to meet with me to force a breakup. My memories flooded back. My boyfriend's mother had offered me $20 million to leave her son, an offer I had rejected at the time. Within a couple of days, I lost my job, and soon after, my landlord found an excuse to evict me from my rental. After the outbreak, I was constantly on the run, hiding from the zombies. In order to survive, I lost my dignity and sense of self, barely clinging to life in the ruins of the vast city. Just 6 months later, during a zombie siege, my frail self was pushed into the horde by my companions to buy them time to escape. The sensation of being devoured flesh and bone still sends shivers down my spine. Faced with a second chance, what should I choose? I was still dazed when the sudden ring of a text message on my phone snapped me out of my thoughts. Miss, I will arrive at the Blue Mountain Cafe in 10 minutes. It was a message from my boyfriend's mother, sent at exactly the same time and with the same content as in my previous life. I immediately came to my senses, washed my face, grabbed my bag and all my identification, put on some light sneakers, and headed downstairs. When I hurriedly reached the Blue Mountain Cafe near my home, Joy was already there. The cafe was eerily silent, clearly booked out for the occasion. Joy held a cup of Blue Mountain coffee, and an iced latte sat opposite, likely ordered for me. This familiar scene sent a shiver through me, reinforcing my belief that the zombie virus would indeed break out in 7 days. Hello, Auntie. I hastily took a seat and greeted her, then silently observed Joy. Ah, a Chanel bespoke dress, a Patek Philippe watch, a Cartier high-end custom diamond necklace and earring set, and a large pigeon egg pink diamond ring, all details I had overlooked in my previous life. Too nervous during that first meeting with my in-laws. Now I understood Joy was intentionally displaying these to highlight the class difference between us. Seeing me sit down silently like a fool, Joy seemed pleased with the intimidating effect of her attire. She took her exquisite Hermes handbag and pulled out a bank card. This has 20 million on it. You understand what I mean, right? How could I not understand her familiar tone and gestures? How could an orphan like me be a match for a top-tier wealthy heir? Yet it was her son who said he liked me and wanted to pursue me, not the other way around. In my previous life, I had cried because of my pitiful pride, humiliated, but now, I calmly took a sip of the iced latte in front of me, with a scornful look on my face. I perfectly played the role of a gold digger. So, in your eyes, your son is only worth 20 million, which is even less than the value of what you're wearing today. Joy looked at the beautiful girl sitting in front of her, who resembled a lily flower with a hint of provocation on her lips, her face filled with anger. But then, as if a thought struck her, a smile crept on her lips. Miss, how much do you think my son is worth? Why don't you name your price? I really didn't know how much money the Hamilton family had, as he had always been low-key at school, so low-key that the 10 yuan t-shirts I bought him looked perfectly fine on him. I took a guess at Joy's limits, 50 million, plus the watch, necklace, and earrings you're wearing. I don't want the card, just transfer the money directly, and the watch and jewelry can be cashed out immediately. Since it was all about showing off, might as well keep it all. I stared intently at the shining diamonds around Joy's neck, unabashedly showing my greed. Acting is something anyone can do. Joy was briefly taken aback, her face a mixture of expressions, clearly not expecting me to be so brazen as to even demand the jewelry she was wearing. Fine. Very well, send me your card number. I want you to leave this city today and never come back. I gave Joy a sweet smile. Efficiently, she pulled out her bank card and ID from her crossbody bag and placed them in front of Joy. With a crisp notification sound, she checked her message and saw an 8-digit amount starting with 8 in her bank account. Smiling, she retrieved her ID and bank card, stood up, and bid farewell to Joy. Thank you, Auntie. She briskly left the cafe, hailed a cab, and headed straight for the airport to book the earliest flight back to her hometown in Yunnan province. Hamilton, you've heard everything, right? Mom always told you that Aditi was only after your money. She couldn't stand the test. Her previous behavior was just a game of hard to get. Joy's triumphant words echoed in the cafe, but she didn't hear a single word. before leaving the cafe. She sent Hamilton a breakup text right under Joy's nose and blocked him. Well, I still value honesty. I had just graduated from university and planned to stay in Kyoto for work since I had just confirmed my relationship with Hamilton. But now there was no need. I called the landlord to terminate my lease and boarded the plane home. My hometown is a secondary city, nestled by mountains and rivers, and located on the outskirts of a scenic area. My parents left me a 3-story house enclosed by a wall, designed and built as a standalone villa by government mandate to enhance the scenic area's prestige. The first thing I did upon returning home was to withdraw a substantial amount of money from the bank. Then contacted a renovation company to fix the walls, reinforce the doors and windows, and for the pretense of planting flowers, to cover the rooftop with soil. I offered a high price, and within half an hour, the renovation company arrived with workers. I instructed them to thicken the walls and doors for security, elevate the fence to over 3 meters with barbed wire, and install solid protective bars on all windows. The house had to be secure enough to withstand the force of several robust men. The foreman, realizing I was the sole decision-maker, nodded in understanding. A young lady living alone with such a sense of security is commendable. Don't worry, I'll make sure everything is solidly built. Thinking it over, I felt a brick wall alone wasn't safe. Zombies are fast and stronger than ordinary humans. What if the wall collapsed? Could you add a denser iron fence inside the brick wall? The price is negotiable. I paid half the deposit on the spot, and the foreman assured me with a smile that everything would be completed in 3 days. Having money really does make the world go round. Indeed, money is almighty. After delegating the renovation tasks, I switched into old clothes, took a cab to the city, and bought a van. I asked the dealer to remove the back seats, recalling the driving lessons from driving school. I hit the road somewhat awkwardly. Half an hour later, I was weaving through traffic like a seasoned driver and arrived at the largest grain and oil market. I immediately made the excuse of preparing for a big family feast and began buying large quantities of grains and oils. When I returned, not only was my car packed full, but 2 small trucks followed behind. Upon arrival, I stored the groceries in the ground floor storage room, where 2 lonely bags of rice sat, harvested last year by my parents who sadly passed away before they could consume it. The large-scale preparations at my house soon caught the attention of the neighbors. Before I could speak, the grain store's driver spoke up. Is the young lady preparing for a big family feast? Are you getting married? I vaguely nodded in agreement, said I would invite everyone once the date was set, and hurried off again. She's renovating the house right after coming back home. She hasn't graduated from college yet, has she? Could she have snagged a wealthy suitor? Why is there no man in sight for her wedding, letting a woman handle everything back home by herself? Given how she looks, could she be kept by someone or be a mistress? I ignored the neighbors' whispers and envious glances, which I had seen too much of since childhood. After unloading, I locked the storage room, jumped back into my Wuling Hongguang, and headed straight to the next destination, an outdoor gear store. Backpacks, sleeping pads, moisture-proof mats, kerosene lamps, climbing ropes, storm jackets, down jackets, cooking stoves, multifunctional kettles, water purifiers, high-power binoculars, high-intensity flashlights, climbing picks, Swiss Army knives, catching sight of batons and pepper spray in a corner of the store. I pondered for a moment, after chatting with the store owner and pulling out a stack of cash. It turned out he also had electrified defense rods and animal traps among other controlled items. I bought 3 sets of everything that seemed useful, almost clearing out the store, and after arranging for delivery later, I drove to a wholesale snack and drink market to start my shopping spree. I stocked the car with instant noodles, self-heating hot pots, canned fruits, ready-to-eat canned foods, and more until there was no more room. After arranging with the store owner to secure biscuits, candies, and other dry goods that store well, I parked in front of a pharmacy. After consulting with the clerk and having her help me gather various essential medicines for a 10-person camping trip, I moved on to another pharmacy to continue purchasing different kinds of medications following the same strategy. Only when there was barely room left for one person to stand in the car did I drive home. It took me over a dozen trips back and forth to move everything from the car into a vacant room on the 2nd floor. The first day, the construction foreman hadn't prepared enough materials, and the workers had already left. They would work overtime tomorrow once the materials were sufficiently prepared. By half a day, all the rooms had new security doors installed, and the foundation for the perimeter wall was beginning to take shape. The progress was satisfactory. Just as I was about to take a break, I heard the roar of a car engine outside. Checking the time, it was the delivery from the outdoor supplies store. After arranging everything neatly, I was so exhausted that I couldn't even think about moving my toes. After hastily washing up, despite being extremely tired, I suddenly found myself unable to sleep, carrying a huge secret. I couldn't find anyone to share it with at that moment. I aimlessly scrolled through various news on my phone and couldn't help but anonymously post a message on major social platforms. In 7 days, the apocalypse might arrive. Believe me, stock up on food and water. And stay indoors with your doors and windows locked. Many might call me crazy or foolish, but that was all I could do. After all, I couldn't guarantee whether the zombie virus would indeed break out in 7 days. I slowly drifted off to sleep in my bed. At 4 in the morning, I suddenly heard 2 men's cries of pain outside. In the darkness, I didn't turn on the light. With a cold laugh, I dressed and picked up a stun gun and a powerful flashlight from beside the bed. Then slowly made my way downstairs. Through the door's peephole and aided by the moonlight, I saw 3 figures. 2 of them were crouching and cursing softly, clutching one leg, while another figure was on the ground trying to free someone. I frowned, realizing that I had set too few animal traps, and some had slipped through. As I debated whether to call the police or handle it myself, another suppressed scream reached my ears. The person trying to release the trap stumbled and stepped into another one. That settled it. There was nothing more for me to do. I glanced at the sturdy security door and chain lock before returning to my bedroom on the 3rd floor. Not long after, more rustling sounds came from downstairs, then silence. When daylight came, I looked down from upstairs. The 3 spots where I had set the traps were now empty, traps and all. I went downstairs, collected the remaining traps, and waited for the foreman to arrive. Half an hour later, the foreman arrived with a large group of workers and 2 trucks full of materials. I locked everything that needed locking, gave the foreman some instructions, and then drove out. Medications were still my main purchase for the day, as even a minor cold could be deadly when basic needs like food and warmth were not met. I bought cold medicine, fever reducers, stomach medicine, high blood pressure medication, diabetes medication, and even stocked up on several oxygen tanks. Any medication I knew a little about. After nearly visiting every pharmacy in town to fill up my van, I parked the vehicle in a safe spot and took a taxi to the agricultural market to start buying seeds. I bought 3 times the quantity of every type of vegetable and fruit seed available in the store. After placing the seeds back in the car, I headed to the largest electronics mall in town. Large capacity freezers and refrigerators, solar water heaters, solar panels, air conditioners, power banks, rice cookers, induction cookers, electric griddles, air fryers, complete sets of knives and cookware, and crucially, gas stoves and gas cylinders. After paying, leaving my address, and scheduling the delivery time, it was already 2 in the afternoon. I hurriedly ate lunch and then specifically went to a farm machinery market. My main targets were sharp, lightweight rechargeable weed trimmers, high-power handheld electric saws, and fireman's axes. Essential for dealing with zombies that required decapitation. I placed an order for 5 sets and arranged with the store owner to deliver them to my small detached house the day after tomorrow. Finally, I found a coffee shop to sit down in, took out paper and pen, and carefully made a list. A secure residence was soon to be completed. A large stock of food was ready, and I had prepared medications and weapons. What remained was a large supply of drinking water and clothing for all seasons. When I came back, I hadn't brought any luggage, so it was time to prepare clothes and shoes as well. As the sun was setting, tireless, I went to the largest mall in town, heading straight for the sports section to start my shopping spree. Sports outfits and shoes were undoubtedly my first choice, suitable for all seasons, and various styles of lightweight sports shoes. Underwear, socks, towels, and blankets, all essential items, were also on my shopping list. I had enough money on my card to indulge in a shopping spree. By the time I returned home in a chauffeured car provided by the mall, laden with dozens of bags of clothes, the perimeter wall of my house was already halfway completed. I had instructed the foreman to reinforce the wall with steel bars to ensure its sturdiness. The workers managed to finish the wall just as the sun was setting. And they began installing sharp barbs in the fading light of the sunset. On the third day, I headed out early before the workers arrived and locked up the medicines I had brought back in the house. That morning, I stayed in, waiting for the delivery of appliances from the electronics store. Once the workers had installed and tested all the appliances, my fortress was nearly complete. By the afternoon, the external wall was fully constructed, and the robust double security doors were securely installed. The internal iron fence was also successfully poured. After settling the final payment with the foreman and seeing the secure gates, I felt a sense of safety. My reflection in the shiny security door showed my frail figure, which made me frown and immediately drive to a fitness equipment store. I purchased everything the owner recommended, including treadmills, dumbbells, skipping ropes, and arm strengtheners. Later, I drove and bought a whole carload of bottled water wholesale. After several trips, admiring the stacks of bottled water at home, I was impressed by my own foresight. It turned out I was not as physically weak as I had imagined. Lying in bed with trembling hands, I opened the shopping app and started placing orders like crazy. Since it was the 618 sale event and many were stocking up, I took the opportunity to blend in. I bought essentials like toilet paper, toothpaste, toothbrushes, laundry detergent, shampoo, sanitary pads, and tampons by the boxful, compressed biscuits, chocolates, canned foods, and my favorite spicy snacks. I couldn't get enough. When I reached the buying limit on one platform, I switched to another. I made sure to contact customer service with each order, with only one request: next day delivery. On the fourth day, a rainy day, I looked at the torrential rain outside with a vague sense of foreboding. Early in the morning, I went to the market and bought a carload of fresh vegetables, fruits, and meat, filling up the fridge at home, and then I started browsing the news on my phone. The last time the zombie virus outbreak began, it had also rained heavily day and night, followed by widespread incidents of people biting others. As the situation continued to escalate, the zombie virus broke out nationally and globally within hours. Given the dense population and international traffic hub in Kyoto, the first appearance of a zombie quickly overwhelmed the city, leaving no time for reaction. Now, living in a remote city in Yunnan province, I was in a much safer place than in Kyoto. The hot topics on various social media platforms were still trivial entertainment gossip with no special news. The comments under the news I posted were dismissive, and I shook my head, turned off my phone, and went to sleep. Unbeknownst to me, during the night, incidents of violent biting continued unabated and quickly topped the trending news. My sleep was restless, haunted by nightmares of being pushed into a crowd of zombies. The terrifying zombies and the pain of being bitten felt so real and frightening, trapping me in a nightmare. I was woken up by a call from the delivery guy. Squinting through sleepy eyes and looking at the sturdy walls around me, I took a deep breath of relief. I was still alive, and it felt good. Amid the delivery guy's curious glances, I opened the gate to let him unload the goods. The first floor was already filled with food and water, and I stored all the daily necessities on the second floor. Fortunately, each floor of this small building had over 100 square meters, including a garage, all spacious enough. By the afternoon, everything I had ordered the night before had been delivered. I drove out to buy a crate of potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams, dried vegetables, and other foods that didn't require refrigeration and could be stored for a long time. At the market, there were noticeably more people buying vegetables than before, all hurried and carrying large bags. My right eye twitched as I quickly paid a high price for the items I needed and drove straight home. On the way, I turned on the car radio to the news channel and, as feared, heard the news I least wanted to hear. The government was urging people to stock up on food and stay home as much as possible due to the frequent biting incidents the night before. I checked my phone, and all social media platforms were pushing the government's message. My heart skipped a beat, filled with both shock and confusion. The biting incident happening ahead of schedule meant that what I experienced in my previous life wasn't just a dream. Could it be that the zombie virus was going to break out earlier than expected? In my previous life, the government hadn't issued any warnings. Such biting incidents were merely trivial matters in daily life across various places. Something seemed different this time. There were only about 5 or 6 hours left until the complete outbreak of the zombie virus. It felt like I had set a countdown to the apocalypse in my mind, ticking incessantly. After arriving home, I unloaded the car and hurried to continue stocking up on supplies. One can never have too many supplies. so I chose less crowded markets and supermarkets to freely stock up. With 2 hours left on my phone's countdown, I drove my empty car to the gas station. After filling up the tank, I spent a significant amount of money to buy an entire carload of gasoline. I drove cautiously, fearing that a zombie might suddenly leap out at my car on the road. Fortunately, I made it back to my small courtyard without any incidents. After parking the car in the garage, my first action was to securely lock the large gate of the fence. I fastened a thick iron chain around the gate of the iron fence, then leaned against the gate to calm my racing heart. It took several deep breaths before I could fully regain my composure. Just as I had finished moving things from the car into the room, an alarm suddenly went off on my phone, startling me instinctively. I turned off all the lights, drew the curtains over all the windows, and crouched in a corner with my hands over my mouth. It took me a while to realize I might have overreacted. I didn't turn on the lights. Instead, I sat on the floor and turned on my phone. In just a few hours, there were reports about zombies all over major websites and social media platforms. The zombie virus had indeed broken out earlier than expected. Looking at the room full of food and water, I laughed through my tears. A news update from the capital's government soon startled me. Attention citizens, the zombie virus has now broken out worldwide. Please protect yourselves at all costs. Do not go outside, lock your doors and windows, keep lights off at night, and avoid making noise. Only by decapitating a zombie can it be killed for sure. Be sure to check for wounds on those around you. The government couldn't possibly have identified so quickly that zombies are attracted to light and sound. Could someone else have been reborn like me and informed the government? Soon, another news update confirmed my suspicion. The government is taking corresponding measures and will soon initiate rescue operations. An emergency shelter has been established on a certain street in the capital, where citizens can seek refuge. Together, we will overcome this disaster. Reading this, a wave of bitterness washed over me. In my previous life, I had spent over a month hiding with other survivors, never knowing about the existence of a shelter in the capital. Clearly, things were different in this life. I turned off my phone and collapsed onto the bed, expecting to be unable to sleep, yet I soon fell into a deep slumber. In the middle of the night, I was awakened by loud banging at the door, accompanied by a woman's voice outside. I got up, drew back the curtain, and stood at the window on the third floor, raising my binoculars in silence to look outside. Aditi, are you home? Please open the door and lend me some food. Zombies have appeared in the city, and it's total chaos. I can't buy any food at all. Yes, Aditi, you bought so much rice and flour before. Lend us some, please. My stockpiling of food was no secret to the nearby residents. Using the moonlight, my thermal binoculars revealed two neighborhood aunties from nearby houses. Just as the news of zombies broke out, they had set their sights on me. Thinking I was an easy target, my family were outsiders here. My grandfather had worked in this area, and my father was born and settled here. The locals always resented outsiders, and none of them had bothered to visit when my parents passed away. The thermal binoculars clearly captured 5 figures hiding in a corner. I silently curled my lips, knowing that these people were not here to borrow food, but likely to forcibly take it. They were probably planning to rush in the moment I opened the door, aiming to seize not just my food, but also my house. Seeing that I did not respond, the two continued to pound on my door relentlessly, making a tremendous noise, which made me frown. Did these people not see the government's announcement about the outbreak? Don't they know that such noise could attract zombies if there are any nearby? Zombies don't have body heat. Scanning around with my thermal telescope, I saw nothing until, to my surprise, I noticed that 2 figures had disappeared from the corner of the wall. Looking up, I saw 2 men positioning a wooden ladder against my perimeter wall. I sneered to myself, mocking their foolishness as they approached the iron fence 2 meters away from the wall. I had built 2 walls for a reason, the first to keep out zombies, the second to deter people. In this apocalyptic world, human nature's ugliest sides are magnified. People can be far more terrifying than zombies. I had fortified the iron wall with thorns. Anyone trying to climb it would have to shed some blood first. The apocalypse had just begun, and I wasn't about to let anyone breach my sanctuary. I tiptoed to the gym and picked up a recurve bow that came with the fitness equipment I had bought. Simple, lightweight, and easy to handle. I had learned how to use it at the fitness store. I should be fairly accurate within a range of 20 to 30 meters. Even if not, it didn't matter much. I had stockpiled hundreds of arrows for practice. I slung a quiver of arrows over my shoulder and positioned myself at a second-floor window overlooking the wall. Just as I was about to shoot, the first person who popped his head up heard a cry from beneath the wall, followed by scrambling footsteps and the sound of the ladder collapsing. "Run, there are zombies coming." The cries were interspersed with the eerie moans of the zombies, under the cloak of night. The bloodthirsty howls of zombies outside the wall sounded both familiar and foreign. Despite it being midsummer, a chill ran through my body. I hadn't expected the zombie virus to spread so quickly on its first day, reaching even this remote area. It seemed this was a sudden, global catastrophe from which no one could escape. I thought I was prepared, but just hearing the zombies made me freeze in terror. Gritting my teeth, I pinched myself hard to stop the trembling. The sharp pain helped me overcome my fear and regain mobility. I put down the bow and picked up the telescope again. The climbers had seen the zombies first and had fled immediately. The person holding the ladder, a step too slow, was overwhelmed by a suddenly appearing zombie and was gruesomely mauled, as some sacrificed themselves and others desperately ran home. Unfortunately, the loud banging on the door had attracted more than one zombie. Another zombie rushed out from the shadows and pounced on the last man. I recognized the zombie's face. It belonged to an elderly person who lived near the downtown area, closest to our block. Aunt, living to my left, was a bit slower, just 2 steps shy of entering her home with her husband. She was grabbed by an emerging zombie. The man only needed to pull her away to save her, but instead, he pushed her out without hesitation and slammed the door shut. She hadn't been bitten yet, but her heart was already dead. All that was needed was a helping hand, and she would have been saved. Decades of marriage crumbled in the face of crisis and death. Shock and disbelief were etched on Aunt's face. If she had relied on her strength from the start, perhaps she could have escaped, but now, pushed by her husband, she was completely delivered to the zombies. Soon, her arm was bitten, without ifs. 5 minutes later, Aunt had become one of the zombies, perhaps driven by resentment. While other zombies moved on in search of food, Aunt Jo lingered long at her doorstep, unwilling to leave. In just a few minutes, several vibrant lives had turned into cold zombies. I watched from the window for half an hour, ensuring that the zombies couldn't climb the ladder, before my legs gave out and I sat down on the floor. As calm returned, I lost all desire to sleep. I pulled out my phone, turned the volume down to the minimum, and checked the news. The apocalypse had just begun, and the internet was still up, but it wouldn't last much longer. As more people became infected, the loss of internet, electricity, and water was only a matter of time. In the dead of night, the internet was buzzing with all platforms sharing various incidents about zombies. Some mourned their loved ones who had turned into zombies. Others boasted about their stockpiles of supplies. But what remained constant were the eye-catching government announcements on the front pages of major platforms. I couldn't help but laugh silently to myself. Whoever knew about the zombie virus outbreak must have deep connections to have the government issue these messages. But then, how many people can the emergency shelters in Kyoto really accommodate? For those without shelters, they have no choice but to rely on themselves. The supplies I've stockpiled are enough to last me alone for 2 years, and with the vegetables I'm growing on the roof, I can hold out even longer. I hugged myself and whispered softly, "Aditi, you can do this, don't be afraid." Just as I was trying to boost my own morale, my phone suddenly vibrated. I looked down to see a call from an unknown number. I had a strange feeling that it was Hamilton calling. By the 5th buzz, I pressed the answer button. The call connected. And although the signal was unstable, I recognized Hamilton's breathing on the other end right away. I felt a bit guilty, fearing he might ask why we broke up and why I left without saying goodbye. But then I quickly remembered that this time, I was the one who ended it first. After his mother left him in my previous life, I called him countless times and sent numerous messages, but could never reach him. It wasn't until I was fired from my job that I received a breakup text from him, identical to the one I had sent him a few days earlier. Aditi/Hamilton, we're breaking up. Then the zombie virus broke out, and I never saw him again until I was pushed into a crowd of zombies. Hamilton's slightly hoarse voice brought me back from my memories. "Aditi, are you okay?" I was about to tell him how well I was doing with the generous breakup fee his mother gave me, when I heard a young woman's voice close to him through the phone, yawning softly. "Hamilton, who are you calling? Why are you still up so late? We have a busy day tomorrow, go to sleep." Calling me in the middle of the night while lying next to another woman. What was Hamilton thinking? I abruptly hung up the phone, sitting in the dark as tears uncontrollably slid down my face. I mockingly tugged at the corners of my mouth, wiped away the tears, and thought to myself that in these apocalyptic times, there's no room for love affairs. The most important thing now is to survive. At dawn, I climbed the fence with a ladder, poured gasoline on it, and completely destroyed the ladder. That night seemed to have frightened everyone in the village. Hardly anyone went out for several days. While the internet was still working, I downloaded fitness and self-defense videos on my phone and computer, and filled my phone with novels to pass the time, besides meals and rest. I spent all day in the gym training my physical fitness and archery skills. I wasn't after strength, but speed. Aiming to develop muscle memory so I could run faster when fleeing, the recurve bow was my daily focus, and I sharpened all the smooth arrowheads into sharp points. After the outbreak of the zombie virus, the weather also became strange, with the summer temperature, which was originally around 28 to 29 degrees Celsius, soaring to 40 degrees, feeling the cool air of the air conditioner. I couldn't help but appreciate the simple joys of being wealthy. This expensive, noiseless air conditioner was worth every penny. On the 7th day after the outbreak, I was enjoying a leisurely nap when I suddenly heard several squeaking noises from the second floor, waking me up. The calls were frequent and urgent, although very soft. They were impossible to ignore. Alarmed, I wondered if something had invaded my house without my knowledge. I quietly got out of bed, strapped a kitchen knife to my waist, took the recurve bow in hand, and tiptoed barefoot towards the second floor. The noise was coming from the room where I stored vegetables and fruits. Looking at the security door with a slight gap, I suddenly remembered that I had taken a potato at noon and forgotten to close the door. The incessant chirping emanated from the crack under the door. Crouching cautiously, I peered inside, my hand gripping the bow tightly, palms sweaty with tension. My gaze fell on two double-door refrigerators against the wall and various long-lasting vegetables and dried goods neatly arranged by the wall. No sign of anyone. A sigh of relief escaped me, but my heart was still in suspense. Memories of animals infected with the zombie virus from my past life flooded back. The noise was eerily reminiscent of those disgusting zombie rats, small in size, fast in movement, with razor-sharp teeth. Encountering a swarm of zombie rats almost certainly meant annihilation. Few survived an encounter with a swarm of zombie rats. My heart tightened. Could it be that a stray zombie rat had silently infiltrated my home from some unknown entrance? But why wouldn't they attack me and instead hide in my vegetable storeroom? Like ordinary zombies, zombie rats crave blood and bite humans. Not eating regular food, attacking living beings is their instinct. And this is a major reason why the zombie virus spread so rapidly. In my previous life, the first thing we did upon finding a camp was to check for zombie rats and block all possible entry points for them. I didn't dare move rashly. Instead, in the sweltering 40-degree heat, I ran back to put on climbing boots, a thick jacket, gloves, and gently pushed open the door to the vegetable storeroom. The door creaked open. Still, the same chirping noises persisted, with no other movement. Step by step, I moved towards the corner from where the noises emanated. There were no zombie rats at all. Instead, amidst a pile of dried vegetables, I found a dozen newly hatched mini chicks. Why mini? Because these were rodden chicks. My mind flashed back to a few days ago when the vegetable seller lady had stuffed several tiny rodden chicken eggs into the dried vegetables I bought. I had moved the vegetables into the storeroom and then forgotten about them, unexpectedly. Over a dozen of those eggs were fertilized and had all hatched today. I was both shocked and delighted. I quickly shed my heavy gear, found a box, and gently placed the dozen unopened-eyed tiny rodden chicks inside. I exercise daily, consuming a lot of energy to boost my stamina, and I have a voracious appetite for meat. I even debated whether to control my meat intake, worried about running out of supplies. Seeing these dozen little rodden chicks gave me the confidence to continue eating meat daily. Rodden chickens are small, disease-resistant, consume less, and have a short hatching period. From hatching to maturity, it only takes about 45 days, and they can start laying eggs between 50 to 60 days. Due to their small size and high egg production, many young people keep rodden chickens as pets, joyfully collecting eggs every day. The vegetable seller's daughter was one such adorable girl who enjoyed collecting eggs. The enthusiastic lady had even shown me a video of her daughter raising rodden chickens, with just a simple breeding room. They could be easily raised indoors. Rodden chickens don't crow, so with the security door shut, You couldn't hear them at all from outside. Those small, rudden chickens are prolific breeders. As long as I could sustain this flock of rudden chickens, I would have meat every day and eggs to collect daily. I couldn't even dare to dream of such good days. I held the adorable little creatures in my arms, almost kissing them in my joy, while there was still internet. I immediately started looking up tutorials and tips on raising rudden chickens on my phone, using leftover cardboard boxes and plastic sheets from unpacked parcels. I cobbled together a small breeding room for my rudden chickens on the 3rd floor. Out of the 15 chicks, 10 survived. Besides my daily exercises, I spent hours fussily circling around my rudden chickens, foolishly watching them for over an hour. I even named each chick and talked to them daily like a fool. During a long and lonely period, they were my only companions. On the 10th day after the zombie virus outbreak, the power and water supply were cut off, and the internet collapsed. The extreme hot weather continued, but I wasn't too worried with my solar power setup and a whole house full of bottled water. Neighbors without much drinking water grew restless. On the 15th morning after the outbreak, I heard several cars driving away. Until evening, none of the departed vehicles had returned. 2 days later, noises of windows breaking and doors being smashed could be heard from nearby, which then returned to silence. Under the continuous high temperatures, the vegetable seedlings had been scorched nearly lifeless. I was on the rooftop rescuing the still surviving seedlings, moving them to a shaded area while also fixing the sunshade. Besides the soil-covered area, there was a space on the rooftop the size of a room, featuring a water storage tank that could fill up to knee height. I had placed some young fish in the tank, which was specifically used for flushing the toilet, making it both green and eco-friendly. Lifting the sunshade, the fish were still alive, but the water in the tank was only about 10 centimeters deep. Frowning, I thought that if it didn't rain soon, I should prepare for a dry toilet. After organizing everything while on the high ground, I took a telescope and surveyed the surroundings. Several nearby houses had their doors and windows not intact, presumably having been thoroughly looted. Suddenly, I felt a gaze firmly fixed on me. The sensation of being covertly watched was extremely uncomfortable, and I immediately went downstairs to a hidden spot. Using the lens of the telescope, I only saw several zombies wandering nearby, but couldn't spot the person who was spying on me. It seems I, a major hoarder of food supplies, had once again caught someone's attention. Fear not the thief who steals, but the one who keeps you in mind. The covert watcher was like a venomous snake lurking in the dark, ready to strike me fatally. I couldn't just sit and wait to be killed. I began to analyze, if I were them, how I would attempt to conquer my fortress. After analyzing, I immediately took action against any defensive vulnerabilities I could think of. In the following days, while maintaining my routine of eating and sleeping, I waited for this venomous snake to strike. On the 30th day since the zombie virus outbreak, the exceptionally hot weather continued. Perhaps it was the preparedness or reaching a limit, but at dawn that day, I heard the roar of vehicles outside the perimeter wall. As soon as the sky lightened, I immediately got out of bed and looked down from the window. 2 black off-road vehicles, their windows welded with steel pipes, were parked several meters apart under my house's perimeter wall, perhaps fearing that the noise of the vehicles would attract zombies. It wasn't until I had finished a piece of bread and a box of milk that the rear doors of the vehicles opened, and 6 tall men emerged from both vehicles. The leader was the production team leader Tobias and his idle son Toby. The remaining 4 were likely their relatives, whom I hadn't seen much, but they all looked quite similar in appearance. The drivers in both vehicles didn't come out, clearly ready to flee at any moment. I scoffed coldly. This group really thought highly of me. Knowing I was alone yet still making such a grand gesture, it seemed they were also well aware of the zombies, specifically choosing the early morning when zombies were less active. Toby, standing over 8 meters tall, along with Tobias, quickly climbed onto the roof of the vehicle. Then, the people beside the vehicle took a thick quilt from the back seat and handed it to them. Together, they threw the quilt over the top of my wall, covering a large area of barbed wire. 3 others did the same from another direction of the wall. I went to the 2nd floor, armed with a recurve bow and arrows I had prepared, waiting for them to climb the wall. Soon, Toby and another man climbed onto the wall, and clearly were taken aback when they saw the metal perimeter 2 meters away. As Toby looked up at me, I lit an arrow wrapped in cloth soaked in gasoline and aimed in his direction. A whooshing sound followed. Toby dodged, and the arrow struck the quilt under his groin. It went astray, missing his privates. This Toby, relying on his father's position as the production team leader to be lazy and mischievous, had specifically targeted our family, who were outsiders, back when I was in high school, before the area was demolished and rebuilt. He often blocked me at the village entrance when I was returning from school, making many vulgar and disgusting gestures, causing me long-term psychological trauma. After that, I had my dad pick me up every day, and only then did he stop. The dry quilt caught fire instantly. Jumping forward would land him on a ground covered with animal traps, so Toby clumsily jumped back onto the off-road vehicle. Having hit the target with the first arrow, I didn't hesitate to shoot a second one, clearly. The man didn't anticipate my next move and scrambled over the fence in a panic. I opened the main gate, carrying the items I had prepared in advance, and moved a ladder from inside the house to the iron fence. As I climbed the ladder with the items and peered down over the fence, the group had not yet left. They were clearly not giving up, lingering around, probably devising another plan to deal with me. It's only fair to respond when provoked, since they didn't cherish the opportunity given. They can't blame me for what came next. I lit the objects in my hand and accurately threw them towards the SUV. After throwing more than a dozen, I finally stopped. The sounds of shattering bottles mixed with explosions resonated around the perimeter of my house, immediately attracting the wandering zombies nearby. I was lucky. A few of the homemade Molotov cocktails I threw landed precisely, blowing up the tires of 2 SUVs. Now, they couldn't escape even if they wanted to. Vehicles caught fire easily and could explode, forcing Tobias and his group to flee their cars. I quickly returned inside, locked the front door, and stood behind the curtains on the 3rd floor, quietly watching the scene of them being chased by a dozen zombies. Initially, I thought it was just bad luck for Tobias's family to attract so many zombies. As their screams continued, I realized that the number of zombies appearing was twice what I had anticipated. A chill went down my spine. And I quickly turned off all noise-making electrical devices in the house. I moved the chicken coop, where I kept my chickens, to the most soundproof room, the bathroom. After drawing all the curtains in the house, I stood behind the thick curtains, frowning at the dozens of zombies attracted by the noise. I calculated the time in my mind. A month after the outbreak of the zombie virus in my previous life, the number of zombies surged, creating waves of zombie hordes in various places. Countless zombies gathered together, roaming through the cities. Many homes were destroyed in the zombie waves, and more people turned into zombies, further swelling the ranks of the horde. The current situation clearly indicated that the zombies in the vicinity were gathering, signaling an impending zombie wave. In my past life, to survive the zombie horde, I had sold my body. Back then, I lived like a walking corpse, humbling myself to the dust for half a loaf of bread and half a bottle of water. I often asked myself what I was really holding on to. Was it to barely stay alive, or was it to see him once more and ask why? It was painful to look back, but I knew that this time I would definitely survive the zombie horde. Over the next 3 days, the number of wandering zombies outside increased until they formed a massive horde. It seemed as if all the zombies in the city had gathered on this piece of land. The intermittent moaning of the zombies around seemed like a mournful melody enveloping the area. I was on high alert, minimizing any noise during the day and daring not to turn on the lights at night. I couldn't sleep, constantly alert to any activity outside the small building. Somehow, I managed to endure those 3 days and nights. Fortunately, the zombie horde just passed by, thanks to my tall and sturdy walls. They bypassed my small building without detecting my presence. Other houses in the village weren't so lucky. Many were damaged under the trampling of the zombie horde. Several villagers who didn't hide well were discovered and became part of the horde. 2 days later, the terrifying horde had finally passed. As the horde moved on, the number of zombies wandering nearby also decreased significantly, allowing me to finally relax at home. On the 35th day after the outbreak of the zombie virus, the scorching weather abruptly ended, and a strong wind and thunderstorm began at night. This was a sign of impending rain. Overjoyed, I immediately ran to the rooftop to retract the sunshade, exposing the entire roof. I then arranged all available containers outside to collect as much rainwater as possible. In the evening, listening to the dense sound of rain outside, I finally felt completely at ease. The most difficult period had passed. The future would surely be better. The torrential rain lasted for 3 days and nights, washing the filthy earth clean and even freshening the air a bit. after the rain cleared, the temperature finally returned to normal. Once again, I stood atop the building, my eyes taking in nothing but the desolation and decay left in the wake of the horde of corpses. I suspected I might be the only living person left in this area. Zombies could appear at any moment outside. I continued to reside within my fortress. Thanks to the heavy rain, the rooftop pool was replenished, and the fish swam joyfully. I turned over the soil and planted new seeds. The last 2 cucumber and tomato seedlings also survived stubbornly and would soon bloom and bear fruit. Every day I watered the vegetable garden, tended to the chickens, continued my archery practice, and exercised, thoroughly enjoying my routine. On the 60th day of the zombie virus outbreak, I stepped on the scale and found I had gained about 5 pounds. Looking at the spread before me, braised rice with cured meat, cold cucumber salad, sugar-tossed tomatoes, and carp soup, oh well, time to eat, it's all muscle anyway. In the afternoon, while cleaning the chicken coop, I was thrilled to find 2 small eggs. With chickens come eggs, and with eggs more chickens. I was already dreaming of a future where I held a plate of marinated eggs in one hand and a bowl of crispy chicken in the other. On the 70th day of the outbreak, a drone flew overhead, repeatedly broadcasting a recorded message. The Sea City Refuge has been completed, located at XX Street. Survivors can move to the refuge for safety. The government is taking measures to clear the zombies. Please ensure your own safety. Let's unite and overcome this crisis together. The government was so responsive. It had only been 2 months, and they had already built a refuge in my second-tier hometown. In my previous life, even when I was pushed into a crowd of zombies, the government had not managed to completely control Kyoto, let alone support other regions. Having lived through an apocalypse once, I was skeptical of the announcements made by drones. It could well be a trap, waiting for naive souls to bring all their belongings and deliver themselves to the doorstep. In a post-apocalyptic world, trusting others was like gambling with your own life. This was a high-stakes gamble between life and death, and I wasn't going to bet lightly. I looked around at my possessions and decided to stay comfortably at home. After several uneventful days, one evening after dinner, I found a small radio in a corner of my room, a gift from my father during my elementary school days. On a whim, I inserted a pair of batteries, and to my surprise, the radio still worked. I put on the headphones, fiddled with the radio for a while, and by chance tuned into a frequency that suddenly broadcasted Hamilton's voice. It was surreal. On the radio, the man's voice was as smooth as ever, yet tinged with a hint of world weariness. Dear survivors, this is Kyoto Radio, and I am Hamilton. Do not believe the rumors spread by criminals using drones recently. Currently, the national refuges are located in Kyoto, A City, S City, and Z City. The refuges in K City and W City are still under construction, and there are no government-affiliated refuges in other cities. Please be discerning. The government is organizing armed forces to clear the zombies. Please continue to hold on. Kyoto Radio will broadcast live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Please tune into 89.66 HMZ. And lastly, if anyone encounters a girl named Aditi, please tell her I am waiting for her in Kyoto. Thank you all. The broadcast then switched to another person discussing survival tips and tactics for evading zombies, as well as some basic survival knowledge. I hardly absorbed any of it, just sitting on the edge of my bed, stunned. Was Hamilton looking for me? Was I dreaming? For the following week, I set my alarm to tune into 89.66 HMZ on time. I assured myself that I was only interested in updates about the zombie virus, not just to hear Hamilton speak. The announcers on the Kyoto channel varied, and so did the duration of each broadcast. Nearly a month passed without hearing Hamilton's voice again. It almost felt like my last encounter was a hallucination. However, the broadcast consistently relayed positive news. For instance, the government had organized experts to start researching a vaccine for the zombie virus, and troops had secured another safe zone. Among other things, listening to the radio slowly became my way to stave off loneliness, and I no longer held out hope of hearing that person's voice again. On the 100th day of the zombie virus outbreak, I hatched my second batch of rud chickens, and the chives and bok choy on the rooftop had already been harvested several times. Watching these chirping little lives, I couldn't help but smile. But before the smile could reach my eyes, a sudden roar of cars and motorcycles erupted from beyond the fence. There were clearly more than one vehicle. I secured the chicken coop and grabbed my recurve bow, just as I took cover by the window. I saw two armored off-road vehicles and a large motorcycle parked outside the fence. Drones were mounted on the roofs of the off-road vehicles. 8 men and 2 women stood beside the vehicles, loudly discussing outside my building without any reservation. Yo, is this the building you were talking about? Nice building, solid walls, locks intact, really suitable for a base. You said there's only a young girl living here. You're not fooling us. Right, don't worry, boss. This woman is the last of her line. Her whole family died out before the outbreak. I guarantee she's the only one here. Heh, and she's as pretty as a movie star. Boss will definitely be pleased. But she knows archery. Guys need to be careful when we go in. That was Toby's voice. I couldn't believe he was still alive. And now he had found some backers. What was infuriating was that he dared to covet my building. Cut it. Our boss isn't even afraid of the army. Why would he fear a woman, Toby? If you're scared, just stay far away and don't hold us back. Ha, I heard he almost got his manhood shot off last time. Poor kid must be traumatized. Stop your nonsense. Hit where it hurt. Toby became visibly agitated, but as the bald man he called boss raised his hand, everyone immediately fell silent. He whispered some instructions to his group. Too far away. I couldn't hear a thing, but I was certain they were plotting against me, and I knew I had to strike first. I gathered my weapons and went up to the rooftop, continuously lighting the firecrackers I had prepared and threw them towards the crowd outside the fence. The firecrackers burst with crackling sounds, echoing around. The group was startled and immediately looked up, searching for where I was. I had already hidden myself, not letting them spot my location. The continuous noise soon attracted a few wandering zombies nearby, achieving my goal, but this group was undeterred. Bang, bang, bang. After several gunshots, the zombies were cleanly eliminated, and the group remained unscathed. Only Toby, who was used as a human shield when the bald leader nearly got attacked by a zombie, got bitten. In his shocked and incredulous gaze, the bald leader shot him in the head. Toby was now as disposable to them as I had once been, a pawn to be discarded at any moment. My heart tightened, realizing deeply that these were utterly ruthless madmen. In their eyes, only their own lives mattered. They held no regard for others, considering they were armed. I became even more cautious but also did not hold back. Taking advantage of the high ground, I started throwing another weapon. Gasoline bombs spiked with nails. The glass bottles exploded one by one outside the wall, sending nails flying in all directions, injuring several people instantly. My resistance clearly infuriated the group. Following the leader's signal, they dodged the flying nails while shooting at me, while I dodged bullets. They quickly scaled the wall and unlocked the gate. This gang was clearly experienced in looting and plundering, equipped with all sorts of tools for climbing and breaking in. A man quickly used a vehicle as a step and a mattress to reach the top of the wall. The moment the mattress touched my fence, I shot a flaming arrow. I can't believe the cotton pad wasn't ignited. Damn it, these people were already prepared with fireproof asbestos pads. Just a second ago, the guy who climbed the fence was mocking me for trying to burn the asbestos pad with fire, and the next second, he was stunned by my second iron gate. He climbed down the fence intending to open the gate for his accomplices, only to step into the animal trap I had hidden in the lawn with his first step. Clearly, Toby was also unaware of this hidden weapon of mine and had no chance to warn them about the second iron gate inside the fence. The man inside the fence screamed in pain from the animal trap, while the lock-picking expert outside had already successfully picked my door lock. The people outside pushed the door hard, and with a clang. They didn't expect that I had added an extra thick alloy lock on the inside, locking the door handle. Without unlocking the alloy lock, they couldn't squeeze in. The lock of the alloy was hidden behind the door, making it clearly impossible to pick directly. Through the crack of the door, they saw the second iron gate inside, and also saw an arrow flying straight towards their companion. With a thud, the arrow mercilessly pierced the man's neck, leaving a bloody hole before hitting the fence. The man slowly fell to the ground, covering the 2 bloody holes on his neck, while his companion, splattered with blood, awkwardly retreated while firing a gun at me. With the arrow hitting its target, I immediately moved positions. At this moment, I hid under the parapet on the rooftop, my hands uncontrollably shaking. I had killed someone. I really had killed someone. It was my first time killing someone. My heart was racing, adrenaline surging, hands trembling non-stop. Amid the continuous shooting and cursing of the group, I slowly calmed down. Now, of their 10 people, 2 were down, leaving 8, afraid of getting shot. They no longer climbed the wall. The bald leader was instructing his underlings to fetch hydraulic cutters from the car to cut through my large iron chain. I dashed down to the first floor and entered one of the rooms, grabbing my new weapon from a row of farm tools. They had guns, and so did I, except mine was a large caliber nail gun that had been modified. I remember telling the boss that I lived alone and wanted to buy something for self-defense. Initially, he said he only had farm tools, nothing else. Later, under the assault of my stacks of cash, he recommended this to me. According to the boss, this type of gun is generally modified for bird hunting, with an effective range of 50 meters. This one was his personal stash. My house was less than 15 meters from the fence, well within range. Honestly, this was my first time using the nail gun. I recalled the usage method the boss taught me, and aimed through the window crack at the man who was clamping my iron chain, with a bang. The immense recoil made me fall back onto the floor. A thick nail had shot into the man's neck. Don't ask me why it was again the neck. It's because I feel the neck is a bigger target than the heart and easier to hit. This spot is also lethal, with no ribs in the way, making it the least likely place for a newbie shooter like me to miss. The nail stuck in the man's neck, and he fell to the ground in pain, making gurgling noises as blood continuously flowed from the pierced hole. Each breath torturing him, yet no one helped him. In a world scarce of medical supplies, this was already considered a fatal wound. The bald leader, unable to contain his fury, gave him a mercy shot, then lifted his gun and blindly sprayed my house. After firing that shot, I immediately changed positions. Now crouching silently behind a column, I calculated that I had taken down another person. 7 left. This was a life or death struggle, and I remained hidden in the house, waiting for the next opportunity to strike. The leader, after venting his frustration, decided to confront me personally. The person with the clippers changed, and every time I tried to peek out, I was spotted. Every time before I could pull the trigger, he managed to shoot and force me back. That was the closest I had come to death. A bullet grazed my face and lodged in the wall behind me, leaving a bloodstain on my face. I was terrified, my heart pounding, just a fraction away from being hit. I suddenly realized that this man was a professional gunman. I was no match for him. As the chain was about to be cut through, the breach of the iron gate was inevitable. I had to adjust my defense strategy. I wiped the blood off my face, my mind racing into action. A minute later, I set down the nail gun and picked up the recurve bow, crouching as I made my way to the second floor. With a snap, my iron alloy lock was severed, and the group pushed open the gates. Today, even the heavens were on my side. With the wind blowing directly towards the gate, I immediately ripped open a bag of flour and started pouring it down. The flour, scattered by the wind, obscured their vision, making it impossible for them to pinpoint my location. I peered through the thermal scope, spotting one red silhouette after another, rapidly firing arrows. I kept shooting until my quiver was empty. Then, shaking, I hid below the window sill to rest. The sound of the arrows was hard to detect, and the flour blinded them, obscuring the direction of the incoming arrows. However, a few arrows hit the iron fence with a clang, accompanied by cries of pain. As the flour gradually cleared, several figures appeared in front of the gate. One of the 5 men, hit in the thigh, collapsed to the ground, screaming in agony. A slight movement caused a gush of blood from the wound, clearly hitting an artery. Next to him was the lockpicking expert, now lying on the ground with 2 arrows sticking out of him, one in his left eye socket and another in his chest, his fate unknown. In the middle was the bald boss, the best gunman and my primary target, but it seemed his luck was strong. He had an arrow in his left arm, and at some point, he had pulled a woman in front of him as a shield. She had arrows in her neck, stomach, and thigh, covered in blood, already dead. She had taken all the lethal arrows meant for the bald boss. The man next to the boss had mixed luck. He wasn't hit by arrows but in his panic, stepped into a bear trap that clamped onto his right calf, immobilizing him. The luckiest were a man and a woman on the far right, because they were the furthest. My shots were inaccurate, and the iron fence blocked the arrows, leaving them unharmed. However, the scene before them terrified the woman, who screamed and ran towards the gate, the man following closely. She didn't get far before the bald boss shot her in the head. killing her gruesomely. The man was quick and had almost started his motorcycle when a bullet hit the fuel tank, causing an explosion. Taking advantage of the bald boss's preoccupation with the internal conflict, I quietly drew my bow to shoot, but he was too alert. Lifting the woman's corpse in front of him as a shield before he could be hit, he retreated cautiously, cursing and grinding his teeth. "You bitch, I'm going to kill you." I remained silent, my next arrow swiftly ending the life of the man caught in the bear trap. 6 of the 7 were dealt with, and I breathed a deep sigh of relief. The bald boss had retreated behind the fence, out of my sight, and we remained in a standoff until dark, while the bald boss dared not advance. I took the opportunity to throw several gasoline-filled balloons towards the gate. The balloons landed with a dull thud, and the boss, thinking I was attacking ineffectively, did not show himself. Some balloons burst upon impact, but the strong smell of blood masked any unusual odor, leaving the boss unaware. The pungent blood scent gradually attracted zombies hiding in the shadows. The bald boss took refuge in an SUV and began shooting the approaching zombies one by one. Gunshots continued outside the gate until it became quiet half an hour later. Having almost exhausted all my weapons and tricks, and knowing the bald boss was a ruthless killer, I couldn't afford to let my guard down. At 4:30 a.m., during the most exhausting time of day, the bald boss silently approached the gate. I pinched myself hard. I mustered all my strength and began to implement my plan, pretending not to see him. I fired arrows aimlessly in several directions first, causing him to lower his guard. Just when he thought I couldn't hit him, arrows ablaze with fire came whistling towards him. Many balloons had already burst upon landing, and by the time the bald leader smelled the strong scent of gasoline, it was too late. One after another, the flaming arrows easily ignited the gasoline spilled on the ground. The dry weather and the evening breeze caused the flames to leap high, trapping him, surrounded by flames. The bald leader couldn't see my position and fired his gun wildly, fearlessly. I continued to fuel the fire. I threw down balloon after balloon filled with gasoline from various places. The bald leader struggled desperately in the inferno, eventually succumbing to the quietus. I collapsed on the floor, my body uncontrollably shaking. Tears streamed down my face before I knew it. I won. I successfully defended my fortress. I lost. I didn't kill the zombies first. Instead, I killed many of my own kind. Thinking about the weapons and equipment I used today, I felt an immense sadness. Nail guns, Molotov cocktails, gasoline bombs. These were useless against zombies. They were meant for humans. I sadly realized that what truly terrified me wasn't the zombies, but the monstrous humans in a chaotic society. Humans are the most terrifying creatures on Earth. To keep my courtyard clean, I burned the bodies of those people. I took usable supplies from their vehicle and brought back their drone. After locking the gate of the surrounding wall, I resumed my secluded life in my fortress. Day by day, I gardened, raised chickens, exercised, and practiced archery. Fulfilling and happy. Days later, with nothing better to do, I started tinkering with the drone. I charged the drone and connected it to my phone, then controlled it to fly towards the sky. I initially just wanted to scout the surroundings for zombies, but not long after it took off. The drone's camera captured a group of people frantically fleeing. It was a small squad, 10 people in total, with 8 strong men in dark green camouflage and faces painted with camouflage, protecting an elderly woman and a little girl as they retreated. They must be government soldiers. Only regular military personnel would protect the powerless elderly and children like this. One figure seemed vaguely familiar. Before I could take a closer look, I saw dozens of zombies following massively in the camera's view. These people must have stirred up a zombie nest. Gunshots rang out, and after a round of firing at the zombies, it was clear the squad was low on ammunition. The familiar figure signaled to everyone, prompting them to stop shooting and speed up their escape. At the same time, he also noticed the drone, his familiar eyes suddenly looking directly at it. Appearing before me, I was shocked, although his face was obscured by paint. Those eyes looked a lot like Hamilton's. Almost instinctively, I controlled the drone to circle around him, then shook it towards the direction of the small building before flying the drone there. As if he understood my intention, he immediately led his team to follow my drone. The squad followed the drone to the outside of my small building, puzzled by the closed door and the high surrounding wall. Seeing the zombie horde rapidly approaching, I tied the key to an arrow and shot it in front of him. He quickly picked up the key, opened the door, and managed to close it just as the zombie horde arrived. These people had not even had time to be surprised by another door when they heard the zombies' moans and pounding outside. Frustrated that they couldn't reach their prey, they gathered tirelessly outside the wall, scratching and clawing. A team member, itching to fight back, couldn't help but speak up. "Captain, should we shoot?" The captain, whose eyes resembled Hamilton's, waved his hand. "No. This door is very sturdy, they can't get in. Conserve strength, just in case." After he spoke, his gaze shifted to my window, as if he wanted to peer through the curtains to see my face clearly. From the moment I heard his voice, I was stunned. It really was Hamilton. On the 108th day after the zombie virus outbreak, I actually saw him. After the initial shock, I regained my composure. Even if it was Hamilton, it didn't matter anymore. He and I had no relation now. Saving them was the riskiest thing I've done since being reborn. I wouldn't meddle further. I had already cleared the traps beneath the wall after the last big fight. Seeing them obediently staying below the wall without further actions, I stopped bothering about them. But half an hour later, the zombies outside the door not only didn't leave on their own but became even more agitated. They relentlessly stayed outside the wall, determined not to give up until they caught someone. Something was off. Normally, as long as you stay quiet and hidden, zombies would give up after a while and move on to a new target. But now, this abnormal behavior, could it be that something on these people was attracting the zombies? Hamilton seemed to realize something was amiss too, his intelligence finally kicking in during this brief respite. It seemed like ever since they saved someone, the zombies had been relentlessly pursuing them. As the zombies' howls outside the wall grew more pitiful, he immediately ordered to shoot. His team members formed human ladders, and standing atop the wall, they began shooting the zombies. I also picked up my recurve bow and kept shooting arrows. After a barrage, more than half of the zombies were killed, but they still relentlessly tried to break in. Hamilton's people were running low on ammunition and had already ceased firing. My arms were so sore I couldn't pull the bow anymore. Frowning, I looked down at the 10 people below. The soldiers were all ready for a fight, watching the wall intently, ready to make a last stand. The little girl, looking terrified, clung to Hamilton like a tail. Only the old woman sat alone by the wall, her eyes darting around, avoiding contact, and she couldn't stop trembling at the sound of the zombies outside. Suspecting something, I wrote a note and sent it to Hamilton via drone. Even if my security door was strong, it couldn't withstand the relentless impact of numerous zombies. I couldn't possibly open the second iron door for them again. Please immediately check if anyone is carrying something that attracts zombies, especially that old woman. My handwriting was shaky and crooked. I wasn't sure if Hamilton could make it out. Soon I saw Hamilton say something. Then the soldiers around him began to strip and check. After checking themselves, he checked the little girl. And then approached the old woman. Her body shook like a sieve, not letting him get close. With a wave from Hamilton, 2 soldiers restrained the old woman. A black plastic bag fell from her embrace, and as they opened the bag, it revealed a large piece of rotting meat. A strong stench of decay immediately filled the air, making the zombies outside even more restless. Everyone suddenly understood why they had been relentlessly pursued by the zombies. Hamilton grabbed the plastic bag and threw it over the wall. The zombies scrambled frantically for the rotten meat. After the scramble, although the zombies still lingered outside the door, they were no longer as frenzied as before. Once the stench in the surroundings completely dissipated, many zombies staggered away, leaving only 2 or 3 still stubbornly lingering outside. After a while, one of the soldiers behind Hamilton incredulously asked the old woman, tears in his eyes, "Grandma, why would you do this? We saved you, and yet you do this to us. Did you forget the 2 soldiers who were dragged away by zombies to save you? We rescued you from a den of cannibalistic bandits, and this is how you repay us." Hearing this, all the soldiers looked pained as the old woman covered her face and sobbed. "My son and my partner died on the run, and my daughter-in-law was killed by those cursed people. Now, all I have left is my grandson, my only kin. And what about the families of the 2 soldiers who sacrificed themselves? Have you thought about us? How can you be so selfish?" The old woman was rendered speechless by the rebuke, and could only apologize while sobbing. "I'm sorry to those 2 young comrades. I'm sorry. If apologies were enough, I'm sure they would apologize countless times. But sadly, time cannot be reversed and there is no cure for regret." I listened to their conversation dispassionately, Finally understanding the whole story, my earlier guess turned out to be tragically accurate. Wasn't there a drone announcing that the city's shelters were repaired, urging survivors to seek refuge? Those so-called shelters were intentionally designed as traps. Those who sought refuge were ambushed and robbed of their belongings, reduced to mere captives. The people behind this can only be described as monstrously cruel. They kept those who were useful to them. The useless ones were either thrown out to fend off the zombies or turned into their food. The old woman and the little girl were lucky. They were rescued by Hamilton's team just a day after being deceived into entering the shelter. But those villains had taken the old woman's grandson. Before Hamilton's team breached the place, they had threatened the old woman to carry a bag of rotting flesh to distract the zombies with Hamilton's group. Thus, Hamilton's team managed to save the old woman and the little girl, and also drew the zombies away, allowing the villains to escape successfully. The zombies relentlessly pursued them because of that bag of rotting flesh, hoping for a chance to see her grandson again. The old woman kept this a secret from Hamilton's group. If they hadn't run into me today, they probably would have been chased to death by the zombies without ever knowing why. No one expected such an ending, feeling a mix of emotions. I asked the old woman through the ground floor window, "Does that group include men and women? Is the leader a bald man?" I briefly described the people I had killed, and the old woman, visibly agitated, nodded her head. "Where did that group go, miss? Did you see my grandson?" I was momentarily at a loss for words. I hadn't seen the little boy. All I saw in the group's car fridge were several severed limbs. I had already burned that fridge, now only its wreckage lay on the road outside. I couldn't bring myself to say it and simply replied coldly, "They're all dead." There were no children in the group. No one asked how these people died. The bullet holes on the walls and the scorched ground already spoke volumes of the fierce battle that had taken place here. But the soldiers' gaze shifted subtly when they looked at me. The old woman must have understood the implication in my words, lowering her head to weep silently. It's hard to feel sympathy for someone whose actions had cost 2 soldiers their lives, and the soldiers themselves seemed indifferent towards her. Only Hamilton, who had been watching me since I started speaking, seemed to know it was me. I hastily retreated to the 3rd floor. From downstairs, Hamilton's voice trembled. "Aditi, is that you?" The soldiers were stirred, realizing that the person who saved them was the woman their captain had been searching for. I didn't respond. And downstairs Hamilton persistently repeated the question. His fellow soldiers teased along. "Sister-in-law, the captain has been searching far and wide for you, and he's finally found you. We've already broken up." Despite my retort, the soldiers didn't give up, continuing to tease Hamilton. "Sister-in-law, the captain has been looking for you for a long time. Please forgive him, right? Sister-in-law, the captain knows he was wrong. Please forgive him." These people, despite their cracked, bleeding lips and growling stomachs, still found the energy to joke and laugh. Hamilton kept repeating like a fool, "Aditi, is it you?" Feeling both helpless and amused, I finally flung the curtains open and yelled at him, "It's me." The moment our eyes met, this man who had never shed a tear in front of me suddenly started crying like a child. "Aditi, it's so good that you're alive. It's truly wonderful. I've finally found you." My heart was bitter, yet I didn't know how to face him. The countless moments we shared during our 4 years in college were always sweet memories. Our roommates teased me more than once, saying that Hamilton and I were too clingy, feeding them dog food for 4 whole years, but I had taken his mother's money and broken up with him. It seemed there was no future for us. In this life, Hamilton might be innocent. He knew nothing, yet I couldn't let go. Even now, knowing that Hamilton and the others posed no threat, I still didn't dare open the door to face them. I felt extremely insecure, my first concern always my safety. Even if it was Hamilton downstairs, I couldn't fully trust him. Silence was the best form of rejection. Fortunately, Hamilton also understood that now was not the time for reminiscing. When he had managed his emotions, I threw him a rope to hold on to. Using the rope, I sent down a large bucket of mineral water, compressed biscuits, and freshly stewed luoding chicken eggs. My luoding chickens had hatched their 2nd brood, producing a considerable number of eggs each day. I found some seasoning packets and stewed the eggs I had accumulated over the days. Hamilton and his group were lucky. Seeing the water and food, the soldiers were pleasantly surprised and thanked me profusely. I nodded at them and drew the curtains shut again. After dark, a young soldier fired a flare into the sky. After sending the signal, Hamilton directed his soldiers to take out their sleeping bags and rest on the spot, watching them arrange themselves orderly, slipping into their bags and falling asleep quickly. Their snores soon rose and fell evenly. They were clearly exhausted. After throwing down 2 thin blankets to a little girl and an old woman, I too returned to my bedroom. Hamilton was cautious, still arranging for someone to keep watch during the night. That night was the most restful sleep I had had since my rebirth. When I woke up, Hamilton and his group had already left. He left a small note on the iron door, along with some mineral water and several bags of compressed biscuits. Aditi, wait for me. I'll come for you once I've completed my mission. Please wait for me. I clipped the note into my diary and continued my reclusive life. As time passed, the frequency 8966 HMZ broadcasted good news each time. Zombies were being cleared from various provinces and cities, and regions were being reclaimed and starting to rebuild. On day 285 of the zombie virus outbreak, a breakthrough was achieved in the vaccine developed by our country, and clinical trials began. On day 360 of the outbreak, the zombie vaccine developed by our country was officially launched, being promoted worldwide and applied to survivors. After vaccination, ordinary people became immune to the zombie virus. Encounters with zombies would not lead to attacks, and even if bitten, one would not turn into a zombie. Those who had turned into zombies were as good as dead. They could not be cured. A global campaign to completely eradicate zombies began. On day 385 of the outbreak, all zombified animals within the country were eliminated. On day 400, the last zombie in the country was destroyed, marking the complete extinction of all zombified creatures within the country. The nation celebrated. Starting to rebuild our homeland, on day 401 of the outbreak, someone knocked on my door. I opened the door to see Hamilton, his familiar features now sun-darkened and more mature, with a new scar behind his left ear. He was dressed casually, holding a bouquet of roses and smiling brightly at me, just like the first time he confessed to me in college. He kneeled on one knee and looked earnestly into my eyes. Aditi, will you be my girlfriend? Hamilton asked. Remembering the incident between him and his mother before, I hesitated to accept. I took your mother's money and promised her that I would break up with you. Doesn't that bother you? I questioned. Hamilton chuckled. After all we've been through this past year, my mom has come to regret her actions and has been urging me to bring you home. But Aditi, do you know, I'm grateful to her. I'm immensely relieved that you took that money and have been safe up to now. Otherwise, we might never have seen each other again, just like in our past lives. My eyes widened in shock as I instantly understood what Hamilton meant. Was he also someone who had been reborn like me? Tears uncontrollably streamed down my face. You know about it. Seeing me cry, Hamilton couldn't hold back anymore and pulled me into his embrace. I know everything. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have left you. So much happened in our past lives. Can you forgive me? By the time Hamilton finished speaking, I was already sobbing uncontrollably. Once I had calmed down a bit, I took the flowers and asked with a stern face, who was that speaking with you on the phone the last time you called? Hamilton, with a look of, I knew this would come up, immediately pulled out his phone and made a video call. Aditi, listen to me. It was a misunderstanding. I can explain. Sister Alice, please, quickly explain to my girlfriend. Watching Hamilton anxiously and clumsily trying to get the girl on the phone to explain to me, I couldn't help but kiss him on the lips. This time, I was not alone. It felt so good. End of the story. Hamilton's side story. 7 days before the outbreak of a zombie virus, my mother informed me that my grandfather in New Zealand was seriously ill, urging me to go abroad to visit him. 10 minutes before the plane took off, I received a call from her. As soon as the call connected, I heard a conversation between my mother and my girlfriend. Aditi, there's 20 million in here. You know what I mean, right? So in your eyes, your son is only worth 20 million, less than the value of the clothes you are wearing today. 50 million, plus the watch on you, and the necklace and earrings. I don't want a card, just transfer the money directly, and the watch, earrings, and necklace can be cashed out immediately. I was still in shock even after their conversation ended. Was this really something my beloved girlfriend would say? Was this the same Aditi who felt bad even when I spent $100 on a bag for her? Hamilton, you heard everything, didn't you? Mom already told you that Aditi was only after your money. She can't withstand any tests. She has been playing hard to get all this time. The conversation between my mother and Aditi left me in turmoil, and the plane was about to take off. I hurriedly ended the call and saw a breakup text from Aditi. I wanted to call her back, but the flight attendant was already reminding everyone to turn off their phones. I had to find Aditi and talk things out once I landed. This flight was going to take about 12 hours, and I closed my eyes in frustration, thinking I wouldn't be able to sleep. But just a few minutes later, I fell asleep. I had a dream. In the dream, it was still this day, and I found myself outside Aditi's home at a cafe, but no one could see me. I saw Aditi nervously greeting my mother. I watched as my mother, from a position of superiority, pulled out a card and asked her to leave me. I watched as Aditi, with her eyes red with shame, refused. She kept trying to call me dozens of times, but couldn't get through. I saw her crying heartbreakingly, and it was unbearable for me, but I couldn't touch her. Nor could she see me. I suddenly remembered that I had worked overtime until midnight the day before and had forgotten to tell her about my trip abroad. I just watched her cry all night long, and the next day she still had to muster the strength to go to work. Later, I watched as she was fired and evicted from her rental, watching her, a foreigner in the vast city of Kyoto, struggling to make her way. Every day she looked for me, but she couldn't find me, until the zombie virus outbreak. I watched her hide alone, helpless and desperate. I saw her robbed of food and water because she kindly helped others. I saw her forsake her dignity and lose herself in the struggle to survive, falling into despair. I watched her write my name over and over, her eyes full of frustration, until I saw her pushed into a crowd of zombies by others, watched as the zombies bit her. And where was I? Where was I? The scene shifts and I see myself, just as today, boarding a plane to New Zealand. But because the flight was rescheduled earlier, I missed Aditi's call. After I fell asleep on the plane, I saw the assistant my mother had arranged for me secretly switch my SIM card. Unbeknownst to me, upon arriving in New Zealand, I tried to contact Aditi, but the assistant took advantage of the crowded airport to steal my phone. Desperate without my phone, I tried to call Aditi but found that international calls wouldn't go through. I suddenly remembered setting up anti-spam filters on our phones because of excessive prank calls before graduation. My overseas calls were directly blocked. It was inconvenient to replace a SIM card abroad. I thought I could just go back and find Aditi after a few days, but I didn't expect the zombie virus to suddenly break out. I was completely trapped in New Zealand. Only then did my grandfather reveal that he wasn't sick at all. My mother, who disapproved of Aditi, had sent me away on purpose. Aditi losing her job and being evicted was all my mother's doing to drive her away. I was in agony, unable to confront my mother or even reach Aditi. My grandparents lived on a farm in New Zealand, where they were the owners. The farm was remote, well supplied, and had a well. These resources helped us survive the apocalypse. When societal order was finally restored and international airports reopened, it was 10 years later, in the 8th year of the apocalypse, both my grandparents passed away. And I embarked on my journey back home alone. Unfortunately, I could never find either my mother or Aditi again. I searched for them all my life, only to die full of regrets. The scene flips, and everything returns to the beginning. Once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. It seemed I was caught in a loop, over and over. I watched Aditi defy my mother. I boarded the plane. The zombie virus outbreak occurred. Aditi died tragically, and I was stranded in a foreign country. Never to see her again. Until this time, Aditi suddenly changed. She not only accepted my mother's money but also broke up with me. I suddenly woke up, drenched in cold sweat. The scenes in the dream were vivid, as real as if I had lived them. I looked at the sleeping assistant beside me and shakily unlocked my phone. Sure enough, the SIM card had been switched. Emotions churned inside me, but I dared not act rashly, uncertain if the future would unfold as in my dream, nor whether the zombie virus would actually erupt. I needed to verify. I continued to feign sleep until we deplaned, and just like in my dream, my attempt to call Aditi was interrupted by the assistant. Minutes later, my phone was gone. Everything was unfolding just like in my dream, and I couldn't help but tremble. I borrowed the assistant's phone to call my father, told him about my dream, especially about the impending zombie virus outbreak. With my father's help, I convinced my grandparents to buy the next flight back home with them. Only when I stood again at Kyoto's airport did I feel a sense of relief. After settling my grandparents, I tried to find Aditi but discovered she was untraceable. Time was pressing, with less than 4 days until the outbreak of the zombie virus, and I was extremely anxious. My father is a military man who prioritizes global crises over personal issues, particularly the zombie virus I told him about. He explained that personal issues were trivial in the face of a crisis threatening all humanity. Trusting me now, he took a great risk. For things yet to happen, all he could do was to prevent them as much as possible before they occurred. He instructed my mother to stock up on supplies and confined me to the military base, cutting off my contact with the outside world. He gave me pen and paper and asked me to write down everything I knew about the zombie virus, unable to defy my father or escape. I tried my best to recall details from my dreams about the zombie virus. I carefully noted the characteristics and weaknesses of zombies, the transmission of the virus, and key information such as the names of scientists who later developed a vaccine. Even after taking the information, my father kept me confined at the military base until a local news outlet reported a biting incident 2 days later, which is when he reappeared before me. Hamilton, your dreams might indeed be a reality. We have now set up a research team dedicated to the zombie virus, and you will serve as a special advisor, he told me. Dad, what about Aditi? I want to go find her. Hamilton, the country needs you now. Wasn't it your childhood dream to serve your country as a soldier? Aditi has already left Kyoto. I found out she bought a plane ticket back to Yunnan. I'm sorry, but I can't let you leave at this time. I also found a message she posted anonymously on various platforms. Take a look. I think she knew about the apocalypse in advance. Just like you, she's a smart girl. I'm sure she'll be fine. Seeing the apocalyptic warning Aditi posted, I was shocked. Did Aditi have the same dream as me? Is that why she made a different choice this time? Choosing between oneself and one's country is always a dilemma. In the end, I stayed silent and remained at the military base. The zombie virus outbreak happened sooner than I remembered, catching everyone off guard. The Kyoto government immediately promoted my father to take full charge of the city's defense and granted me supreme command. I immediately mobilized all media to alert the public, broadcasting zombies' weaknesses and safety precautions against them on all channels. The initially doubted Kyoto shelters were also rapidly constructed over time. I was as busy as a top, barely finding time to sleep. On the day the zombie virus fully erupted, I was busy until midnight, finally managing to borrow a phone. I couldn't resist calling Aditi. The phone rang several times, my heart hanging by a thread until she picked up. Aditi, are you all right? But before Aditi could respond, Alice, a biologist in the research team woken by my call, stood beside me. Since the biting incidents began, my father had gathered the named experts from various places to form a specialized biological research team. I lived and worked alongside the research team, everyone cramped together on the floor. Unexpectedly, as soon as Alice spoke, Aditi hung up, and I was stunned, realizing something was wrong from my expression. Alice asked, Hamilton, what's wrong? Desperate, I tried to call back only to find out I had been blocked. I looked helplessly at Alice. Alice, my girlfriend might have misunderstood. If there's a future where we meet, you must help me explain. Alice nodded awkwardly. Don't worry, Hamilton, I promise to vouch for you. Our conversation wasn't even over when a new virus sample arrived. Everyone immediately got up to start experimenting. Though not an expert, I was the most knowledgeable about the zombie virus. After a month of continuous work, I could no longer assist with the vaccine research. I returned to the command center to help my father improve the construction of the shelters. With networks and communications long disrupted, one day I couldn't help but plead with the day's broadcaster to let me take his shift. After completing the broadcast, I used the opportunity to seek traces of Aditi among the nation's survivors. Although my father scolded me for misusing public resources and confined me for 3 days, it was a risk I felt compelled to take. I don't know if Aditi heard me, but I just want to let her know that I will always wait for her. 3 months after the zombie virus outbreak, the Kyoto shelter has stabilized completely. I found my father and applied to join the forces in Yunnan to clear out the zombies, knowing I wanted to find Aditi. My father didn't stop me. I believe Aditi is still alive. Since she hasn't come for me, I will go to her. I traveled through many places in Yunnan, and whenever I encountered trapped people, I fought to save them. I'm scared of never seeing her again, yet I'm also scared to meet her. I fear that by the time I find her, she might already be a lifeless corpse or a clueless zombie. I fear she's suffering, just like in my nightmares. I often comfort myself that no news is good news, even if it's just self-deception. I think I'll keep searching for her as I do in my dreams, over and over for the rest of my life. until the end of my days. Fortunately, the heavens did not forsake me. I met her in an incredible way. It was the day when my squad and I saved an old woman and a child. We had been fleeing for a day and a night, but the zombies chasing us were only increasing in number. Our ammunition was nearly spent, and we had already lost 2 people. I wanted to break us out but didn't know where to go. Just as I hesitated, considering letting everyone go while I stayed behind to cover their retreat, a drone appeared. It circled us, blinked twice, and miraculously, I understood the intent of its owner. Telling us to follow it, I led my squad and followed the drone, successfully hiding in a strange little building. The owner of the building didn't show up until the zombie horde grew more restless. She sent a crooked, scribbled note. The handwriting looked familiar, but I wasn't sure. No one knew how my hands shook as I held that note. I feigned calm and followed her instructions for a check, and sure enough, something was off with the old woman. I barely paid attention to the soldier's conversation with her, constantly questioning in my mind, "Is it you?" It wasn't until the conversation ended that I finally heard her voice. I could never have imagined that the person I longed for day and night, and searched for tirelessly, was right now just a wall away from me, and she had saved my life. A smile formed on my lips, yet my eyes couldn't help but moisten. I had finally found Aditi. Seeing her safe brought an indescribable peace to my heart. But it wasn't time for our reunion yet. I had a flare shot up, and by dawn the next day, our rescue arrived. I asked Aditi to wait for me, to wait until I completed my mission. Once the zombie virus is completely eradicated, I will come for her. I believe that after cycles of lifetimes, this time we will finally find our fulfillment.